This is my planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501. When did this body become yours? Change's eyebrows were raised, but she knew that this was not the time to quarrel with him, and she should hurry up and withdraw. She spun around, dancing lightly on her palms, and had already escaped from the two-sided attack. It was not until this moment that she suddenly realized where Xia Guixuan came from. Had he been lurking here, waiting for a hero to save the beauty? No, he was not waiting for a rescue, but a change of situation. Just like her, he was waiting for the hidden change in the plane to start. This change could only happen when she and the phantom monster were at their most stalemate and had no power to distract themselves, and it really came. Although Change was waiting for this change, her backhand was already reluctant, because she had expected at most that a full-blown Niumu would fight back, and she was confident in dealing with it, and the arm materialization attack was actually prepared for the change. In the end, she could not have expected that it would be a combination of a peak phantom monster and a wounded Niumu, and Niumu actually had the aura of extreme yang, which restrained her Taiyin atmosphere. The chaotic battle was beyond her ability, so she could only use her killer move on the phantom monster in advance. In fact, she still had some defenses behind her. There was a bright moon hanging behind her, which became her last defense. However, she was not sure whether it could block the Black Fog's sneak attack. After all, it was beyond her prediction. Coupled with the desperate attack of the phantom monster, it was inevitable that she would be injured. However, she was not injured at the moment, but just felt a little weak for a short time. Looking at Xia Guixuan, who was blocking in front of her and catching the phantom monster's fist, Change's eyes gradually became complicated. This was the first time she faced the rain and wind from the outside world independently. She was prepared for the wind and rain. She never thought that there would be a man to shelter her from the wind and rain, especially that this person was him. A Gundam jumped down from the arms of the Jade Rabbit, grew against the wind, and turned into a 6-story Gundam, which put the Jade Rabbit in its arms. The Gundam held a laser sword and posed a very cool pose towards the Black Fog, and the Gundam hooked its fingers. Black Fog, Change, what is this? What a silly pose. Meanwhile, Xia Guixuan grabbed the fist of the Phantom Demon with one hand. The two seemed to wrestle for a moment, and the Phantom Demon groaned and pulled back. Black blood flowed from his chest. It was caused by a dagger stabbed by Change, but it did not seem to be the fatal injury that Change expected. The black blood stopped quickly, and there was not even a scar on his chest. It was as if this Phantom Demon was made of mud, and it would be fine if it was needed again. It was just that its breath was slightly weakened, proving that it was not completely undamaged. The atmosphere was slightly quiet for a moment, as if everyone was trying to figure out what was going on. Even the battle between Niumu and Athena had stopped. Niumu was still glowing all over, like a cow-shaped light bulb, and was staring at Xia Guixuan stupidly, wondering why the powerful man he met on the road suddenly appeared here inexplicably. What did this irrelevant matter have to do with him? In the silence, Huan Yao slowly spoke. Xia Guixuan, we are interested in Kanglong Star. You said it is your planet. We are interested in Zelter. You said it is the star field you are determined to conquer. I am spying on the brain world. You said it is strongly related to your virtual world of Kanglong Star. Now, billions of light years away, it is also your planet. In other words, why are you everywhere? In fact, Xia Guixuan also wanted to say, why are you everywhere? But there is nothing to say. When everyone's goal is to collect the remains of brain flowers, the methods they choose will be very similar, touring the heavens, expanding the worlds, and invading all places you can find. Conflict is inevitable. This may not be called a planet, Xia Guixuan said lightly, but Change is my person. Who gave you the courage to hurt her? Change subconsciously wanted to say something, but swallowed it back and turned her head away without saying anything. The Phantom Demon smiled and said, your people? That's really interesting. I haven't seen her for many years, and she suddenly became your people. Is it because she happened to occupy this plane of great significance, so she is your people? Change was silent. Xia Guixuan did not argue, and said lightly, even if she does not occupy this plane, since this place has taken a fancy to it, it has nothing to do with you. Is Dong Huang too self-righteous? How? Xia Guixuan chuckled and looked at it with interest. Your tone is interesting. It seems that you are not surprised by the changes in this world, and even think that the other party will definitely stand on your side. The phantom demon looked forward. In this short period of time, all the strong men in the lower world have occupied the Moon Palace. Under the leadership of the strange black fog, they are almost like a legion. This plane is a larger plane than an ordinary planet. Since it can produce taking like Nimu, when it was dominating, it may have killed other taking and reached the top. There should be more people without form in this plane. More than 10 is not surprising. But strangely, the person leading the legion was not one of those faceless people who had never met before, but an acquaintance. Ma Fei. Ma Fei at this time was no longer like Ma Fei. His whole body had grown bigger and turned pitch black. His originally upright expression had become ferocious, and his 7 orifices were slowly emitting black mist, as if he had been demonized. Xia Guixuan could see that it was the resentment caused by the oppression of countless horse tribes, which gathered in his body and created a terrifying demon in a short period of time. A demonic creature with power comparable to taking, but completely unknown to taking. Standing next to it was the old rival Shi Guixuan. He was not beaten to death by the suddenly powerful Ma Fei. On the contrary, Shi Guixuan also became stronger. It was another template from Ma Fei's strengthening. If Ma Fei became a demon because of resentment, Shi Guixuan became a demon because of the complete release of the long-suppressed anger. The demonization of these two people is just one of them. In fact, all races have similar changes. In addition to the original formless ones, this group of lower world monsters is so numerous that it is impossible to count them all at once. Among them, there are typical operations of the Black Fog, which has suppressed their natural mutations for many years. At this moment, it is suddenly released, overwhelmed their original consciousness, and turned into demonic puppets. If they naturally mutate into dark creatures, it will not be like this. Dark creatures do not represent demons, but can also represent tranquility, but at this moment, everything collapsed, and the entire plane became a monstrous demon prison, a real eternal night. Niumu suddenly laughed. So that's it. This kind of demon, this kind of darkness, this is the form we should have. Who the hell suppressed our fit with the plane, causing a mess? Now this is right, ha ha ha. With a wild laughter, the black aura that had been faintly surrounding it before suddenly surged, as if it was transforming its injuries. The body that had been seriously injured by the explosion after rashly entering the plane was recovering visibly. The third kind of demonization has reached its taking cognition, and the demonic nature awakens naturally. It seems that Niumu's demonization is the complete form. It has its own consciousness, while Ma Fei Shi Guixuan seems not so clear. Athena retreated carefully and stood with change. The scene at this time was too weird. Even if she was known for war and wisdom, she was left with only confusion in this situation. In other words, even if she knew some of the situation, this scene was no longer something she could deal with. Even Xia Guixuan was still confused. The Black Fog was not known for the time being. Why couldn't even Brain Flower be sure where it was, but vaguely knew that there was such an existence? Xia Guixuan had not yet considered this clearly. But what is certain is that this thing must be related to the existence of Brain Flower, and this is the first time Xia Guixuan has come into contact with this thing. However, the thousand-edged illusionary demon, which also came across billions of light years, seemed to know very well what this thing was, and quickly adjusted its target and stood on the side of the Black Fog. The phantom demon said slowly, Dongwang's reaction is very sharp. Yes, I am sure they will stand on my side. How about Dongwang? As long as you take a fancy to this place is yours. Xia Guixuan looked at the phantom demon, looked at Niumu who was laughing wildly, looked at the Black Fog in the distance that was likely to be of the supreme level and the dark army of demons behind it, and suddenly he also laughed loudly, and then laughed louder and louder, and the sound spread throughout the world. It's nothing more than putting a stake in the market and selling your head. Chapter 502, As long as the enemy is not a woman, he is truly invincible. Huan Yato's always calm attitude finally showed signs of anger. Are you, Xia Guixuan, too dismissive of others? It plus Niumu, 2 peaks of taking. The Black Fog is mysterious and unpredictable. I don't know if it is supreme, but it is very likely to be half a step. In addition to the vast number of demonized lives, the leader does not have taking cognition, but he also has taking power, and he also has countless wuxiang. You, Xia Guixuan, brought a few women, changes still a spent force, plus a strange Gundam, and said that we are putting up a bid to sell our heads? Niumu was laughing wildly, the powerful person I met on the road. Now it seems that our meeting on the road is not a coincidence, but destiny. Since you covet the beauty of this bitch and go against the trend, then die." Bang! The battle axe chopped down wildly. This was Niumu's first attack after he saw through the demonization and promoted to the peak of taking. At this time, Niumu felt that he had completely achieved the Tao and reached the limit of power cognition. When he met Xia Guixuan on the road, he saw the scene of the stars following him. Now thinking about it, it seems that he doesn't feel so great. It was the time when he was most confident. This cathartic full-strength axe was enough to split the world apart, and Xia Guixuan didn't dodge in a panic? See if he was still pretending to be magnanimous, pretending to be a mocker. With a clang, Xia Guixuan casually stretched out his hand and gently grasped the axe blade. The so-called power to split the world apart was gone, and Niumu used all his strength, but couldn't chop down even a little bit. Xia Guixuan didn't even look at it, and said lightly, "You once begged me to teach you. Then let me teach you a few words now, Niumu." Throughout the ages, there are always some mistakes made by predecessors that are constantly repeated by later generations. Just like you think that your power has reached the limit of cognition, and it is the peak. But is the peak of taking really so worthless? You have seen through the essence of this world, which is dark and gloomy, and you think this is the origin of cognition. However, you don't know why it is dark and gloomy, why it can exist, and why it is suppressed. The Tao is knowledge, and knowledge is boundless. There is no peak in the world. When you think you have reached the peak, you lose. Pa. As the voice sounded, Niumu's battle axe was actually pinched into a gap. Niumu fell back in horror. Xia Guixuan swung it casually, and the fragment of the axe blade in his hand hit the void in front of him. The void was rippling with water, but it was the phantom monster that was attacking silently. "You know better than this, bullhead. At least you don't think that one axe can split me in half, and you know to sneak attack," Xia Guixuan said, and suddenly clenched his fist. The axe blade spun rapidly in the water waves, causing black water to splash, and instantly became a downpour, sprinkling on the vast demonic life over there. "Not bad Zuanming water, it will transform as soon as it touches it. Let's see if these monsters can be touched." Black fog, swoosh, almost at the same time, Long Yao Shang's AOI shuttled out of the space crack, but not to Xia Guixuan, but to Gundam. They really felt that there was no need to worry about Xia Guixuan. Even if Niumu had recovered from his injuries, they were two taking peaks. They still didn't think the Father God would lose. This scene didn't look like he would lose. Instead, the black fog and demonic life here were the key points that the Father God had been lurking for so long and waiting for, so everyone should focus on it. Brain Flower and the weird black fog were in a stalemate. The black fog didn't make a sound from beginning to end, just confronting with the Brain Flower, watching Xia Guixuan pretending to be cool, and no emotion could be seen in the end. Long Yao felt that the black fog was getting weirder. Is it a living thing? But when Xia Guixuan stirred the Zuanming water of the illusionary monster into rainstorm and sprinkled it on the monster, the black fog moved. The mist spread across the sky and earth, blending with the rainstorm, making a hissing sound. The Zuanming divine water that could dissolve everything evaporated into gas, curling up, and then turned into black fog and fell back, melting back into the black fog, as if it was originally a part of its body. Interesting, Xia Guixuan smiled, but no longer paid attention. He just opened a prelude to the war, and a single move moved the whole body. When the black fog made a move, the Brain Flower would definitely make a move. A hum sound of fluctuations exploded, and no one knew what kind of soul skill the Brain Flower used, which could not be described in terms of appearance. What can be seen is that the black fog is like being crushed and blown away, and then it turns into heavy rain. Long Yao always feels that this battle is a bit funny. Are you playing with plasticine? Roar, the earth-shaking roar resounded through the world. Long Yao looked carefully and saw that the bright red eyes of Mafishi and other pseudo-taking in front of him began to brighten. The black rain and fog in the sky penetrated into their bodies, just like the AI suddenly turned on for a model that was originally unactivated. The overwhelming momentum alone can suffocate people. Various martial arts auras rushed over and tore the sky of the Moon Palace. This is not plasticine. Shang's AOI next to him turned into a human horse shape and stood with a spear. Come up. Long Yao jumped on the horse, put his left hand around Shang's AOI's waist, and rushed straight towards the monster army. The two haven't cooperated like this for a long time. This was originally her horse Woo Woo Woo. At this moment, Long Yao was also in the middle stage of taking. The space suddenly became hazy. Countless powers seemed to be attacking the two, but they twisted strangely and fell into the air. In the void that seemed to be empty, Shang Zhaoi rode his horse with a spear and rushed into the monster formation. Wherever the spear was raised, the one who was hit was killed. There was black blood everywhere, broken limbs and arms, and the screams of the monsters were endless. There were also many monsters killing each other strangely, even using their teeth, and devouring each other. The illusion of the fox, the charge of the Pegasus. The cooperation between war and law, in the early days, made these two hegemons of the descendants of the Kanglong star. Now it reappears in the eternal night plane billions of light years away. The seemingly powerful monster army, which taking Wuxian couldn't count, was killed by the two people of Longyao Shang Zhaoi, and blood flowed like a river. Athena looked a little envious from a distance. Such a passionate war was done by two women. Sister, She wanted to ask if Change had recovered and whether she was going to join the war. As a result, when she turned around, Change stared at Xia Guixuan in a daze, as if she was in a trance, and she probably didn't hear what she said. Athena didn't really want to observe Xia Guixuan's battle. The memory of this man in her was invincible, whether it was wisdom or strength, and irresistible destruction and slaughter. She didn't even dare to look at him. As long as she saw him, she was terrified, and even hatred was difficult to gather. She never thought that this man would lose. Maybe her confidence in him was stronger than the people around him. Just like his one-on-two fight at this time. Bang bang, with two sounds, Xia Guixuan stretched out his left hand, and the endless water waves rolled back. He punched with his right hand, and the violent energy dissipated without a trace. He didn't even move his body, and the two taking peeks left and right pincer attacks were broken cleanly. Then he stretched out his ape arms and grabbed Niumu's horns. Niumu, the irresistible divine power burst out, and Niumu, who thought he was invincible, couldn't withstand such power at all, and was involuntarily taken to the side. The phantom demon watched a bull charging at him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Xia Guixuan actually made this battle at the peak of taking look like a fight between children. Only a true expert could see what it meant to make light of a heavy task, and to condense the endless laws into the most fundamental force. Puff, the bull's horn pierced into the phantom demon's shield. The phantom demon didn't care that his magic weapon was in danger of being damaged, and his other hand quickly grabbed Xia Guixuan's wrist. Xia Guixuan grabbed the bull's horn, and it grabbed Xia Guixuan, and the three of them formed a triangle in a weird way. A dark red hue flashed in the eyes of the phantom demon. Xia Guixuan, are you careless, or do you have to give up your unparalleled Taoism and become a melee fighter just to show off in front of women? Xia Guixuan turned his head to look at Henge behind him, then smiled back. What do you think? The phantom demon said coldly. When we are in the air, some laws are difficult to work for a strong man like you. But if we hold hands in close, you will regret it. As he spoke, Xia Guixuan felt a change in his body. It was the feeling of water disappearing. The other party was the law of water, and everything related to water was controlled by it, including the water in the human body. What would happen when there was no water element in a person's body? Henge felt a change on the side. She could almost foresee the scene of Xia Guixuan turning into a dry corpse, and couldn't help but said in a lost voice, "Be careful." The power of the moon poured into Xia Guixuan, as if to make up for the missing water for him. Xia Guixuan smiled brightly. Thank you. Although he said thank you, it was actually useless. Taiyin is Taiyin, and water is water. Maybe they can be transformed sometimes, but obviously not at this time. But Xia Guixuan, who everyone thought was a mummy, never appeared. Change looked at the scene in surprise. It seemed that something was going back and forth, and the one that was getting drier and drier was Niumu? Xia Guixuan didn't know what law he used to transfer the magical power of the phantom monster to Niumu. But why did the phantom monster also look dry? Did it lose all its water? The phantom monster noticed that the water in its body was also disappearing, and was also a little shocked. Your law of water can affect me? This is impossible. I can't detect the suppression of your law. Of course I can't detect it, Xia Guixuan said lightly, because you control water, and I play with nothingness. Chapter 503 Xia Guixuan's magic tricks. Even Naoho couldn't be sure of Xia Guixuan's current strength. He kept calling himself taking and said that he was not supreme, but Naoho knew very well that this guy could never be measured by the peak of taking, as he had already broken that boundary. Maybe, as he said, when you think you have reached the peak, you have lost. Knowledge is limitless, and so is power. Huan Yao is very strong, but it is obviously limited by its understanding of the law of nothingness. Playing the trick of turning something into nothingness with Xia Guixuan, isn't it playing into Xia Guixuan's strengths? Huan Yao finally realized this, and he must not play subtraction with Xia Guixuan, let alone try to play to the extent of 0. That will only backfire on himself. Just as Huan Yao secretly cried out that it was not good and was looking for a countermeasure, Nimu, who was grabbed by the horns, roared wildly, and the black air on his body rushed into the sky. Xia Guixuan frowned slightly, and immediately let go and stepped back. The three of them fell into a confrontation again. Huan Yao and Nimu were still in shock and did not make a move for a while. Xia Guixuan also looked down at his palm and pondered. At that moment, he felt that he was not holding Nimu, but the black fog that should have been confronting Naohu. A terrifying demonic nature infects the soul directly, which is something that can resonate with his own demonic nature. Moreover, it is addition or even multiplication. If it is not cut off immediately, it is easy to increase the negative proportion of one's temperament, and it will be more troublesome even if one wins. Is this black fog an enhanced version of Dark Demon? It should be different. If it is just a Dark Demon Pro, although it is very strong, it is too common. There are such boss in many planes, and one should not let oneself feel so mysterious and unpredictable. This useless brain flower actually failed to restrict the black fog and let it free up to save Nimu and Huan Yao. Did he really think he could fight casually? He seemed relaxed, but that was just his posture. After all, being handsome is a lifelong thing. In fact, his spirit is not relaxed at all. There are two peak taking on the opposite side. 1 against 2, a little negligence or the other party hiding some unknown killing weapon will also lead to a capsize, okay? The monsters were all stopped by Long Yao's AOI, and the brain flower restricted the black fog, but it was leaking. But it may not be the brain flower's fault. This is a plane problem. Niumu came from this plane, and it comes with it. As if feeling Xia Guixuan's contempt, the brain flower finally ran away. A Gundam stepped down, and several monsters were crushed into meat paste. Brain flower was not here to steal the business of Long Yaoshang's AOI. When it was trampled, it seemed that something was spilled and removed from the monsters that were trampled to death, forming a concrete entity concept. 3 fingers stretched out from the Gundam cabin, picked up a flower and flicked it. Xia Guixuan was unable to see this flick of the fingers. If he saw this flick like the jade rabbit in the Gundam cabin, he would think, it was so beautiful. Brain flower, which has a body, even if it only has these 3 fingers, can play a role far beyond that of a brainwave soul. It has magic power. It seems that you can see that the dark demonic nature has begun to change. If it was originally annihilated, violent, and resentful, then at this moment it is quiet and elegant, just like a lake under the moonlight. The breeze brings the fragrance of osmanthus, a dragonfly touches the lake surface, ripples are clear. And the moonlight is broken like frost and snow, and then gradually condenses. In the killing of thousands of troops, beautiful images are echoing. It was the same dark night, but it changed from extinction to vitality. Picking up a flower and pointing at it, all things were created. Xia Guixuan looked back suddenly and was finally moved. Ahui, I underestimated you. This is not creation in the conventional sense, but reversing death to life, reversing darkness to light, and reversing extinction to vitality. It still corresponds to the attributes of the night, as if this distorted plane has returned to normal. For a moment, the entire battlefield was quiet. Everyone could feel the weakening of the power of the black fog. It was actually almost dissipated because of the bullet of the brain flower. Even Hunjafina could see that this black fog did not have the strength of the body at all. Its strength relied on the dark side of the world. The more violent the darkness of the world, the stronger it is. If it weren't for the brain flower restricting it before, everyone should have been the kind that couldn't stand a single encounter. It was dragged down by the terrifying soul power of the brain flower and couldn't attack others. It seemed that they didn't even have a sense of existence. The black fog shook, and the fog spreading across the world condensed rapidly, gathering again into the human form that initially attacked change, and a voice was heard for the first time. Do you know what you are doing? Brain flower said. None of your business, the black fog figure slowly said. Your resurrection is the death of everything. The entire Gundam suddenly jumped up and down. Then should I die? The black fog was silent. When the thousand-edged illusionary monster saw you, it knew it could stand aside, because they are the ones who collect waste, And you are the ones who throw away garbage. The Gundam jumped so hard that the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. But I am a human. I am a human, the Black Fog said lightly. Are you really a human? What is your mission? You don't even dare to tell Donghuang who you are, because if you tell it, something will happen, the Black Fog said. You observe the heavens and quietly watch the long river of eternity. Aren't you the supreme god who surveys everything and shines for eternity? What's the point of joining the game? I am a human. Brain Flower was furious. With a bang, the angry finger directly pierced through the Gundam cabin wall. As if being pulled by something, Change suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. The world once again transformed into an arm, which appeared directly next to the finger. That was Brain Flower taking back the arm that Change had sacrificed and reclaiming itself. A dazzling white light flashed, and the finger and arm were perfectly glued together. The few damaged and missing parts were filled by countless flesh and blood hidden in the cabin. In the blink of an eye, it became a white jade-like arm, flawless. The arm clenched into a fist and angrily blasted at the black mist figure. This attack was more than 100 times stronger than the previous one that Change had sacrificed to chop the Phantom Demon. If the previous one was the good fortune of the revival of the living, then this moment was the power of the destruction of all things. The Supreme Holy Devil finally showed his prowess. Boom! The black mist figure could not withstand Brain Flower's angry attack at all, and it turned into ashes and scattered around the world, no longer gathering. Long Yushang's Haoi stopped his horse and looked at it. His heart was filled with shock. Is it over? No. No. Just like the boss stages in the game, the scene changed again. The overflowing black mist could not gather into human form, but dispersed into a vague existence of spiritual body and energy body, accurately divided into two streams, and the energy entered the body of the Phantom Monster, as if knowing that the Phantom Monster could be compatible. So the Phantom Monster expanded again visibly, and magic patterns appeared on its faceless face, and it laughed in a low voice. Xia Guixuan, shall we do it again? Xia Guixuan. Another spiritual body was also looking for a host body, and the one that entered was Ma Fei's soul. A whisper resounded in Ma Fei's soul. You should have seen that Change wants to restore the food chain and make this world normal. If you let this group of people succeed, you horse people will always be horses. Are you willing? No. Of course I am not willing. They want to restore the food chain. Why should we sacrifice? Well said. You merge with me, and you can gallop in this world. It must be said that the Black Fog is very accurate. Others may not have the obsession of Ma Fei and the opposition to Change's goals. Only Ma Fei can become its host and puppet in the shortest time. With a horse neigh, Ma Fei was completely demonized and turned into a giant horse taller than Gundam, roaring like thunder and demonic flames. It looked at Gundam. A broken arm is a broken arm after all. You still have a second attack, Brain Flower, before bragging to Xia Guixuan, saying that Change could only drive its arm once, and it could shoot at will. Facts have proved that it can't do it either. A broken arm is still a broken arm after all. There is no cycle of power at all. How can it move without restraint? Suddenly, Xia Guixuan's laughter came from a distance. Ahua, you did a great job. How about I show you a trick, Brain Flower? What trick? A little trick to end this battle immediately. Xia Guixuan looked at the demonized Phantom Monster and smiled slightly. Believe it or not, I only need to use one sword to defeat them. The Phantom Monster laughed. Xia Guixuan, it's really not easy for you to pretend in front of women. I'm standing here, and I want to see how you can defeat me with just one sword. Change. Xia Guixuan Clang sacrificed the Junte sword. The Phantom Monster put away his smile and concentrated on his alert. A terrifying energy suddenly blasted from its side. The Phantom Monster turned around in surprise, only to see the demonized Ma Fei punched its head in an instant. Phantom Demon, it didn't even have time to think, it only had time to use its shield to block Ma Fei's punch at the critical moment. Boom, the shield was blown to ashes, the Phantom Demon's blood was surging, and it was almost blown into a pool. What happened? It didn't have a chance to ask. A sword flashed coldly, shaking the earth. Tai sword. Under the attack of Ma Fei's magic fist and Xia Guixuan's magic sword, the demonized Phantom Demon couldn't even exert the ability to merge with a black fog, and was blown to pieces. Only its last utterance was left in the void. Fuck, sister. Be careful, Athena's voice came. Xia Guixuan turned his head suddenly, and saw that Nimu, who had been ignored, had secretly approached behind Change at some point, and his fists condensed the terrifying breath of the sun and blasted towards Change's back. Was he trying to sneak attack and capture hostages to save his life after seeing a great defeat? Athena was stabbing at the fists that were like the scorching sun with a spear. How could her strength move Niumu? Seeing that the attack was about to succeed, Xia Guixuan snapped his fingers. The scorching sun in Niumu's hand suddenly disappeared without a trace. Niumu, little Niu, do you have a lot of little question marks? Xia Guixuan smiled slightly. Explode, as if his words came true. The scorching sun was no longer in Niumu's palm, but suddenly shone in its heart. When Niumu couldn't figure out why, it exploded. At the same time, Change, who had reacted, suddenly turned around and slapped Niumu's brow heavily. Bang! Niu exploded. Niumu was blown to pieces, and his soul was frozen by the power of Taiyin, and he couldn't even escape. He never figured out until his death why the Yang medicine sold to him by the Dragon Clan exploded. Chapter 504 I'm really not acting. When the Black Fog transformed version of the Phantom Monster was killed, all kinds of monsters that were fighting fiercely with Long Yu and Shang Xiaowei also regained their sanity. While their sanity was restored, their strength also dropped a lot, so that when they saw Long Yao riding on a horse and staring at them coldly, they all shrank in an instant, trembling and kneeling in front of Change, Emperor. Somehow, being called Emperor in front of Xia Guixuan, Change always felt uncomfortable and her face was burning. She took a deep breath, forced herself to be cold, and said lightly, "It has nothing to do with you, go to the lower world." Yes, people breathed a sigh of relief, looked at Long Yao Shang Xiaowei again with some fear, and silently picked up the corpse on the ground and went to the lower world. Many people's relatives and friends also died in this battle, but they didn't have the face to say hatred. I have become a demon and don't know what I have done. If others don't kill you, are they waiting to be killed by you? There is only fear. These two women killed so many people that blood flowed like a river. Even if everyone had lost their sanity before, the fear of death was still trembling in the depths of their souls. It's terrible. Are all the strong people women these days? People simply ignored Xia Guixuan in the distance. When the gap was so big that people couldn't even understand how powerful he was. Even Hunj couldn't understand it. She stared blankly at Niumu, who had been blown to ashes, and then turned to look at Ma Fei, who was following behind Xia Guixuan honestly. She didn't understand how Xia Guixuan performed this trick. Xia Guixuan explained, Ma Fei had been loyal to me before. I took a part of his soul and can control him at any time. This is irresistible. Even if his soul has been combined with a black fog, I can interfere and dispel it. It seems to be very easy to say, but what kind of soul power is needed to dispel the spirit of the black fog? Henge didn't dare to think about it. That seemed to be something that the Supreme Saint Demon had not completely done just now. Anyway, he wants to show off and act very relaxed and cool, so let him pretend. Athena looked at the silent Hunj and could only ask for her. Then, what about Niumu? How did he explode? It ate the dragon medicine. I know what a certain lolly is thinking. As long as this guy is not my enemy, there will be no problem with the medicine. Once I inject the breath of the 9-star dragon techniques, the medicine will definitely become a death warrant immediately. Where did another lolly come from? Henge's phoenix eyes were filled with murderous intent, and she turned around and left without saying a word. Hey, Xia Guixuan chased after her. Wait, should I thank Donghuang for his help? Isn't it ungrateful to leave with a stern face? Henge paused and said coldly, Niumu was just driven away by me. Where did he get the dragon medicine, and how did he hook up with a Thousand Edges illusion monster? Can Donghuang explain it? Xia Guixuan sweated. It seems like a self-directed and self-acted hero saving a beautiful woman. No matter how you look at it, it seems like it. Change had planned well, and she would not face such a chaotic battle. It was indeed the change caused by his intrusion. And it was particularly vicious. Others who directed and acted themselves would not kill the actors, but he blew them up to death without any evidence. It seems a bit difficult to expect others to thank you. Change waved her hand. And the collapsed white jade moon palace in the distance returned to its original state. She walked in slowly, saying, the arm restored by the plain sacrifice has been taken back by the original owner. This place is a derivative space. If it is not forcibly destroyed, it will naturally dissipate in about hundreds of years. Donghuang has obtained what he came here for. If there is nothing else, please go back. If you want to force your way into the palace, I will leave. Bang! The moon palace closed. Xia Guixuan clasped his hands and turned to look at his military advisors. It seems that what Naoho did was achieved. But what I did was not achieved. No one would help him when something like this happened. Naoho Longao Shangzhao I watched from afar with gloating, wishing he could take out a melon to eat. The enemies who had just joined hands were deserted in the blink of an eye. Xia Guixuan grabbed Ma Fei's hand beside him painfully. It hurts, Ma Fei, you know I'm not acting, right? I've been investigating the situation along the way. I'm a newcomer here and I'm familiar with this place from scratch. How can there be any arrangements, right? You have to testify for me, Ma Fei. Ma Fei held it in for a long time, and finally said, so this is what the supreme power is like. Has your worldview collapsed? Xia Guixuan called out, Ahu. Let it see, get out. I'm playing with my hands, I don't have time to care about you, Naoho shouted angrily, and suddenly a little girl popped out of the cabin. Let it see the crying Wuxiang first, rabbit. The jade rabbit was like a cannonball out of a gun, and fell beside Xia Guixuan with a whoosh, and hid to the side in fear. Xia Guixuan told Ma Fei sadly, this is your jade immortal venerable, Ma Fei. This world. Let's destroy it, it's about to be destroyed. This plane has a lot of problems. If it continues to exist, there will be chaos, unless it is migrated and transformed, Xia Guixuan said. I wanted to discuss the issue of migration of living beings with your emperor. Ma Fei looked a little depressed. Do we have to return to the so-called ecological chain? Isn't this too unfair to us? Speaking of this plane alone, I'm afraid that your emperor's idea is correct although it is cold, but this is a plane problem. If you are willing to migrate, it can be changed. Xia Guixuan pointed to the distance. Look, Ma Fei looked over in the direction he pointed, and saw Long Gaiao still riding on Shangzhao's horse, hugging Shangzhao's waist, with his chin hanging on her shoulder, whispering. The scene is beautiful. No. Shangzhao is a horse? Ma Fei's eyes bulged. It realized at this moment that the female benefactor who saved it was a member of the same tribe. Ahem. Xia Guixuan looked up at the sky, although she also met a bastard who only wanted to ride a horse, and she was a mare. Ma Fei was sweating profusely, and suddenly realized whether it was a lucky thing that he was still alive. But she is my most important right-hand man. She is so powerful that she makes everyone tremble. Who dares to say that she is a mount? As for a bastard like me, who I ride has nothing to do with the other party's species, it only depends on whether I want to ride it. Do you think the lion can escape? I won't ride if she's not a beautiful female. The rabbit continued to shrink back. Ma Fei. Could you please not say such things so confidently? Is it embarrassing? I say what I think. What's embarrassing about that? Xia Guixuan said. There is no food chain in my star field. Intelligent life is intelligent life. It has long been separated from the animal ecology and cannot be generalized. If you migrate to my side, the same shall apply. Ma Fei was silent for a moment, and asked in a low voice, don't you care about the fact that my heart was provoked by the black fog before? I really thought so at that time. Why should I care about this? I'm not a court. Then, what about this plane? Xia Guixuan suddenly squatted down and smiled at the jade rabbit. Little girl. The jade rabbit rolled and crawled back. Xia Guixuan grabbed her collar. Let's make a deal. I want to see your master. I have business, really business. Can you help me to pull some strings and build a bridge? The rabbit struggled and cried. You ride any species, as long as it's a beautiful female, so you ride rabbits and people. Ma Fei put his hands up and looked at the sky. I told you not to talk like that a long time ago. I say what I think. There is a price to pay for showing off. Xia Guixuan bared his teeth in irritation. Are you afraid of being eaten or being ridden? Long Yu was whispering in Shangzhao's ear. What's the difference between the two? Shangzhao blushed and spat. At present, there is still a difference? Long Yu thought for a moment. That's right, there is a difference between him eating changes rabbit and eating changes rabbit. Shangzhao, the rabbit was crying. I don't want it. Woo woo woo, let me go. Xia Guixuan said angrily. I just gave you a toy Gundam. Weren't you very happy? And now you're like this. Ahu is a human, not a Gundam. Oh, you're quite good at licking. Ahu will give you a little red flower. Xia Guixuan stretched out his hand and suddenly a set of pink armor appeared in his hand. What about this? Do you like it? The rabbit's eyes lit up and he couldn't walk. P.S. Thanks to Brother Die Single for posting 4 cute stars at once. Moxa has directly reached the first class star. Chapter 505 Your orders are supreme. This is my armor. Jade Rabbit stretched out her hands and hugged the armor. I begged my master for a long time. I collected a ray of moonlight and sunset every day. found a lot of good materials, and asked Sister Athena to make it for me. Sister Athena said that she had to drip blood to recognize her master. Tutu was afraid of the pain and didn't drip blood, so Niumu came in and snatched it away. Quotation mark. Seeing her holding on to it and not wanting to let go, it turned out that the strategy of strategist Longai to catch the little girl was correct, and Xia Guixuan burst into tears. Then again, this Niumu's luck was also bad, and he had never seen such a bad ox. Niumu definitely did not mess up the equipment of a mere Wuxiang maid. It should be to change its own equipment, because its axe was really not that good. Change collected essence, and Athena forged it. It must be an extremely powerful weapon, right? After all the hardships, I finally got it, and maybe I was injured. But it turned out to be a pink rabbit ear. I'm afraid it was not angry to death. I met a powerful man on the road, and I was clever enough to use this useless rabbit ear armor to exchange for the Dragon Clan channel. I thought it was a waste utilization, but it turned out that this powerful man was here to make trouble. The Dragon Clan's medicine was a scam, and the useless armor was used to catch the little girl. Is this the fate of a Minotaur? So you can't be a Minotaur no matter what you do. Jade Rabbit, holding her beloved armor, finally softened her gaze at Xia Guixuan and asked carefully, "Is it really for me?" Xia Guixuan smiled and said, "Since it's your armor, of course it's for you." Jade Rabbit asked, "Are you a bad person?" Xia Guixuan was like an uncle who deceived a child, coaxing him step by step. "What do you think? Bad people will only steal your armor, and good people will return it to you, right? I think you are good looking, so you shouldn't be a bad person, but the master said so." Jade Rabbit was a little entangled. "The master will not lie to me." Mafe opened his mouth and couldn't say anything. He could not accept the fact that he had always wanted to find this person to uphold justice. "If you are good looking, you shouldn't be a bad person? Then you helped the lion beat me, which means I am ugly?" Mafe, whose worldview completely collapsed, walked away in a huff, and found a corner to squat and draw circles by himself. "Your master may not lie to you, but what if she misunderstood it?" Xia Guixuan continued to persuade her. "Look, I said it before, I never scolded her, I never hid her, I just said a few words and left. How can she be bad? Have you ever seen such a bad person who has done nothing?" The Jade Rabbit blinked. "In fact, sometimes it is because you have not done anything that you are called a bad person, but it is hard to say whether this rabbit knows this truth. Anyway, on the surface, she seems to have really accepted Xia Guixuan's explanation. The master misunderstood. This good-looking brother is not a bad person. Besides, when I said whether to ride or not, I was just trying to resolve the knot on the horse's heart. Would I ride anyone casually? Ask Mafe. It asked me to ride. Did I ride it?" Xia Guixuan worked hard to wash himself. "Look at you again. You are as small as a palm when you become a rabbit. How can you ride it, right? So it's just nonsense. Don't take it seriously." The Jade Rabbit finally said, "The master is not small, Xia Guixuan. Was it in vain to wash it? In fact, he knows everything. In fact, the master can't stop you at all." Jade Rabbit glanced at the Moon Palace cautiously, only to see Athena holding a spear outside, staring at this side vigilantly. She shrank her head and continued, "Sister Athena can't stop you either. Why don't you break in?" Xia Guixuan finally said honestly, "She will beat you. So I want you to talk to her and make a change of heart." Jade Rabbit said, "After fighting for a while, she will calm down. In the end, she will hit your chest with her little fist and cry. Then you grab her little fist, press it back against the wall, and look down at her." The two of them looked at each other, panting, and the master's eyelashes trembled slightly, and finally closed his eyes. 2 lines of tears slid down his creamy face. Xia Guixuan was stunned for a moment. "Is there your book in the bookstore?" An exasperated voice came from the Moon Palace. "I told you not to peek at those TV dramas of humans. Come back here." A stream of light rolled out from the Moon Palace, wrapped around Jade Rabbit, and disappeared with a swish. Xia Guixuan watched the rabbit being dragged away with the armor, as if he could see someone in the depths of the Moon Palace with a red face of shame and anger. He stared at the Moon Palace for several seconds and suddenly laughed. The scene of change, subconsciously being careful and injecting the power of the moon to try to save her water, flashed through his mind. It seemed that she was stern and refused to talk at all, but in fact, she should know that the rabbit was left outside. The reason why she didn't take the rabbit back was to let the rabbit act as a middleman. Unexpectedly, the rabbit said a bunch of nonsense, and the sense of picture was particularly strong. She couldn't hold it anymore. Xia Guixuan thought about it, stood up, and strode towards the moon palace. Athena raised her spear, her whole body tense. Stop, stop. Xia Guixuan walked straight to her without stopping, looking at her closely. Athena slowly backed away, and Xia Guixuan took a step back, and soon her back was against the door, with nowhere to retreat. The scene that Rabbit described seemed to be realized here first. Athena raised her spear. Don't come over, I will really do it. Xia Guixuan said nothing, just looked at her. Athena's hand holding the spear gradually became unstable and began to tremble slightly. Beads of sweat dripped from her forehead, and she could feel the fear and pressure deep in her heart. She could hardly face this man directly, and it was too difficult for her to hold the spear against him. Xia Guixuan suddenly smiled and stretched out his hand to push away her spear. The spear seemed to have no strength at all, and it fell to the ground with a clang. She didn't even have the courage to attack him, and fear was imprinted in the depths of her soul. Xia Guixuan took another step forward, and Athena fell straight to her knees on the ground as if she was exhausted, panting violently. For so many years, there has been no progress, just because of such a mental flaw. Xia Guixuan's voice sounded in her ears. Athena was stunned for a moment, and felt a rough big hand brushing her forehead and wiping away her sweat. Athena looked up blankly, and Xia Guixuan said gently, I am not the same person as I was yesterday, but I hope you can be the same as you were yesterday. The onlookers in the distance curled their lips, and Long Yu complained in a low voice, you sound very pretentious, but in fact, it's because Athena is a famous virgin goddess in their chaotic pantheon. Shang Zhao added, it seems that there is a thread running through them all. The previous training of Mozu was still the remnant of her early thinking. Later on, she gave up that routine on Yu, because the captured female general had defeated her spirit and she no longer wanted to play this routine. It's still more interesting to keep it original, right? Gundam nodded, and then as if he remembered that he now had hands, he stretched out his hand from the cabin and gave a thumbs up. Zhao summarized it very well. A consensus was reached. They knew Xia Guixuan's current mentality too well, but Athena couldn't possibly understand. You could almost see her expression change with your naked eyes, and she actually looked a little grateful, and she bowed her head and said, yes. Xia Guixuan glared at the melon eaters inconspicuously, and patted Athena's shoulder kindly. Open the door. Change knows you can't stop me, so I'm just pretending. Athena stood up honestly, opened the external magic circle, and whispered, I don't want to offend the great Yu. I'm just following the order of the current Emperor of the East to assist the Taiyin Star Lord. In fact, she paused, bowed her head and said, your orders are supreme to me. The melon eaters. Change was pulling the rabbit's ears to lecture her, and her divine mind observed this scene and almost twisted the rabbit's ears into a knot. The rabbit struggled. It hurts, you said you and I share the same hatred, but it turns out you're all traitors. P.S. It's the last 2 days of May. Do you still have monthly tickets? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506 As long as I am in Xia Guixuan, strolling in the Moon Palace. The moonlight is quiet, the Moon Palace is full of brightness, and the sweet-scented osmanthus fragrance is faintly diffused. It is very beautiful, very comfortable, and very deserted. There are only a few living beings in such a large palace. Deep in the palace, there is a faint light, not a candlelight, but herself. She is the moon. The candlelight is deep on the mica screen, the long river gradually falls, and the morning star sinks. It is isolated from the world and also eternal loneliness. People's thinking is not the same at different stages. In the past, Xia Guixuan never cared about beauty, fragrance, quietness and cold when he stepped into her moon palace. This is a place to place captives, a woman he snatched from his enemy. Appearing in front of her is to show off, to declare, and to wash away his shameful face. He never cared about how she felt. Thousands of years have passed until now. When they met again, thousands of thoughts came to my mind, and the clear light everywhere became cold. It seemed as if I could see her hugging the rabbit to keep warm. She looked at the couple in the world with her dim eyes, turned around with regret, and entered the deep palace. The bigger the palace, the more embarrassing this feeling was. So the moonlight bombarded all the way, and I didn't dare to fight back even when I was driven out of the plane. I felt sorry in my heart, so where did I get the confidence to play Take Hang Fist? Just like when I was beaten by my sister that year, I didn't think of beating back when I met again. It's just a little embarrassing after all, obviously facing each other, but pretending not to know each other. My sister is timid, and so am I, but Change is not so embarrassed. She doesn't have much embarrassment, but Xia Guixuan, has it. He suddenly knew what the rabbit was thinking. Really thought that the Jade Immortal Venerable who could suppress the lower world could only act cute. She is also a rabbit demon of 2,000 or 3,000 years. She did it on purpose, because she was also lonely, and now is the biggest opportunity to solve this matter. How could a rabbit continue to accompany you and hold you alone for the rest of your life? It's so lively here, with Gundam, foxes, and horses, all of them are quite funny. It would be strange if you don't become a traitor. They are all actors. Xia Guixuan stood in front of the bedroom, looked up for a while, and gently pushed the door open. The door was not locked. It was meaningless to them whether it was locked or not. The door opened, and Change stood there alone holding the rabbit. When she saw Xia Guixuan coming in, she stepped back subconsciously. It was like a replay of the past. It was just that the rabbit back then buried its head in the owner's rabbit in fear, while the rabbit today poked its little head out, blinking its eyes and shaking its ears, as if to signal him, "Hurry up, follow my script." Xia Guixuan laughed. Change looked at his smile with a stern face and said nothing. Xia Guixuan walked forward and touched the soft fur of the jade rabbit naturally, and the jade rabbit narrowed its eyes. Change cursed naughty rabbit in her heart, and her face was full of frost. "Your Majesty, please respect yourself." Xia Guixuan spoke naturally, as if he was talking to his wife after get off work. "Yi is not dead." Change froze. 2 years ago, when I conquered Zelter, the remnant soul of Emperor Jun hid inside the star formed by the remains of the holy demon, and tried to attack me by surprise. Xia Guixuan touched the rabbit and casually talked about what he saw at work. "When I was about to kill this remnant soul, an arrow pierced through the 9 heavens, tore through the limits of space, and took the remnant soul away." Change pursed her lips, but still didn't speak. "While he was alive, did he ever look for you?" Rabbit answered quickly, "No." Henge was so angry that she picked up Rabbit's ears and stuffed them under the bed. "Shut up." She stood up and looked into Xia Guixuan's eyes. "So you want to compete with him? He hasn't thought of looking for me for so many years, so it's okay for you." "That's not what I meant," Xia Guixuan said, "because you are my woman, not his. So it doesn't matter whether he looks for you or not, what matters is whether I look for you or not. If he really looks for you, I will kill him instead." Henge laughed in anger. "Then you told me about him." "What do you mean?" Xia Guixuan said. "As the Chinese poem says, Change should regret stealing the elixir. I think at least this news can make you feel that there is nothing to regret." "Is there any difference?" Henge said coldly. "Isn't the ending the same?" "No," Xia Guixuan said, "because you are under the blue sky and blue sea, and the person in your heart every night is me. And this person is here after all, and we still have an endless future, enough to make you never regret it again." Change's eyes widened, and she didn't know how to respond to this for a moment. Tutu huddled under the bed with her hands in her pockets, thinking that this man might be of high rank and didn't need her own script. There is a very subtle logic to this kind of thing, the logic of intimacy and the logic of status. Just like Change habitually called Xia Guixuan Your Majesty, this first of all means to treat everyone as a country, and to recognize him as a king rather than an enemy. From the perspective of an emperor, what's so strange about banishing a concubine, especially a woman snatched from an enemy country, to the cold palace? In theory, Change shouldn't even have any complaints. That's called resentment, and she should be beheaded. Change seemed to have fought fiercely before, but did she really dare to kill Xia Guixuan? Don't you see that at that time, they mistakenly thought that Nimu who broke in was Xia Guixuan, and they deliberately held back in their formation. Xia Guixuan was willing to be beaten without fighting back, and stood in front of her in times of crisis. With this attitude, Change's inner complaints were actually half gone. Even if it was directed and acted by himself, it represented a kind of heart. After all, Your Majesty was willing to direct for a concubine in the cold palace, which was not the same as an ordinary little yellow-haired boy directing and acting for picking up girls. So she subconsciously shouted, "Be careful." But just so, if Xia Guixuan apologized with a humble look, it would be very embarrassing, and maybe Change would look down on him. If he really followed a script designed by Rabbit, it seemed too bullying, and Change might still have a knot in her heart. Rabbit thought about it and felt that Xia Guixuan's current words were actually the most decent, the most in line with everyone's identity and current situation, and the most provocative. This can't be learned by watching TV dramas. Who said that the person in my heart every night is you? Change began to stutter. What do I have to do with you? Who wants to have a future with you? Xia Guixuan didn't respond to this at all. He bent down and picked up the rabbit from under the bed, sat on the edge of the bed to tease the rabbit, and turned into a carrot to feed it. The attitude was like, there is no need to answer your question, I am the male owner here. Change said angrily, this is my rabbit, why are you so natural? Rabbit, ignore him, you are not allowed to eat it. The jade rabbit naturally held the carrot and ate it, slapping the owner's face. The dead rabbit that depended on each other for 2,000 or 3,000 years was fed to the dog. Change was speechless. Xia Guixuan said casually, sister asked you to come out, probably because this world is suitable for change to live and practice. But in fact, you have the responsibility to observe the plane, and try to pull this world into the normal night plane, but forgive me for being frank, your level is very dangerous. Change couldn't help but said, if you hadn't brought Nimu and Huan Yao here, I would have been slowly adjusting the plane form, and I would have almost succeeded. Watching a lion bully a horse is success? That's too simple-minded, Xia Guixuan said lightly, their mutation is artificially prevented. No matter how much you guide them, you can't really guide them in a normal direction. If my observation is correct, there will be public resentment and more accumulated evil. Once released, I don't know if you can deal with it. Change said nothing. Perhaps you are waiting for the day of demonization, and you are preparing a big move for this? But the black fog will not do as you wish. It will only wait for the appropriate change before launching. If Niumu doesn't come today, he will come next year. The thousand-edged illusionary demon has been collecting the remains of the holy demon. Sooner or later, it will aim here. You will still face the situation of being attacked from both sides. You should be glad that I happened to come here, instead of thinking that I attracted Niumu. Henge said, Your Majesty, do you want to say that you are not directing and acting yourself? Xia Guixuan still did not directly answer this nonsense, and slowly said, the black fog is not a life form in the conventional sense. Its dissipation does not mean that the situation in this plane has ended. On the contrary, it may trigger a system alarm, and more interference will come. The meaning of you and me here is like a virus invasion in the eyes of some beings, and the antivirus software will be activated. Henge's heart moved slightly. She came here with a mission, and she completely understood what Xia Guixuan said. She was surprised that Xia Guixuan would use such a modern description. Maybe he is really not the same as yesterday. Xia Guixuan stood up and handed the well-fed rabbit back to her. Sort out the things you haven't finished yet and get ready to follow me. No matter who interferes, as long as I'm here, you won't have to worry. Chapter 507, playing hard to get. Xia Guixuan's attitude was too natural, just like an emperor and his concubine who had some awkwardness before, or just like an ordinary couple who had a quarrel. Anyway, the past is the past, so don't talk about it anymore, and just continue to live your life in the future. It was so natural that the rabbit felt that it was normal for him to say let's turn off the lights and go to bed next. Change finally experienced what it felt like to grow grass. Her mind was full of messy thoughts and she didn't even know how to speak. In fact, she was not good at speaking and didn't like to talk much, because there were not many opportunities for her to speak, except with her little rabbit. Even if she was the emperor in this world, others only looked at her from a distance and worshipped her without talking to her. It was basically the rabbit who negotiated with her. But now the rabbit has rebelled. She habitually took the rabbit handed over by Xia Guixuan and hugged it tightly in her arms, as if the rabbit was not rebelling just now, but was bullied and felt sorry. The words she said became, I don't want to leave here, I like quietness, it's good here. Xia Guixuan's eyes were a little pitiful, and he whispered, if you like this environment, we can move or rebuild it. What kind of world do you want? I will create it for you. You want the moon, I pick it for you. Well, what she wants is really the moon. Change's eyes also changed a little. This man, is he really Si Taikang? How could you be so gentle? Xia Guixuan didn't do what Rabbit imagined, turning off the lights and going to bed. Instead, he said, you must be tired after fighting today. Take a rest first. I'll come to see you tomorrow. Henge found that she was subconsciously reluctant to leave. You want to leave after talking to me for 1,000 years, this feeling. But she couldn't say anything to keep him. She just turned her head and said, don't come tomorrow. Xia Guixuan smiled, touched Rabbit again, and turned to leave. Henge stared at him going away, her heart blank. Until he could no longer be seen, Change pinched the rabbit and said, "Am I dreaming, or has he been taken away by someone? Is this man still Si Taikang?" The rabbit said, "He is Xia Guixuan, not Si Taikang." "What does Si Taikang's badness have to do with Xia Guixuan? The one who grabbed your ears and threw you away was also Xia Guixuan. That time he was Kaianian Xia Guixuan, and now he is Washan Xia Guixuan. Is there any difference?" "Yes, if he was called Zixan Gem Si Taikang back then, he would probably be called Zixan Gem Xia Guixuan now." Change thought absent-mindedly for a long time and did not answer. The rabbit suddenly smiled and said, "Do you know why he keeps touching me?" "Ah," Change said hurriedly, "who doesn't touch a rabbit when seeing it? It's normal, right? His hand actually wants to touch you. He almost wanted to hug you. But he can't show that he's so anxious, so he finds a place to touch you to ease the embarrassment." "Poor rabbit," the rabbit sobbed. "Rabbit is no longer pure. If a man touches her, he may not recognize her." Change opened the window and threw the rabbit out. There was a slight light in the night in the distance. Change knew that it was the women around him waiting for him. "Did they make you gentle?" Change suddenly felt a little jealous. "I was the one who came first. No, why should I argue with them about this? I shouldn't pay attention to him. If he comes again tomorrow, I still have to close the door and not let him in." "Humph." With a stern face, Change said to the rabbit pretending to be dead outside the window, "Get up and follow me to repair the formation. There is work to do." The rabbit was heartbroken. "Woo woo woo. Rabbit has suffered a great loss and has no place to seek justice. And you blame Rabbit for lying down. The rabbits in the production team are not as pitiful as me." Change laughed in anger. "You can go to his place and lie down. His hands feel very comfortable anyway," the rabbit said cautiously. "Should I really go there?" Change's eyebrows raised. "Sister," Athena's voice came from behind. I'm sorry, nothing." Change pulled the rabbit back and said lightly, "Even the rabbit is like this, it's not your fault. I really saw him." Athena looked at Change's back in a trance and whispered, "Sister, I envy you very much." "Huh?" Change turned her head. "Is this worthy of envy?" "Yes. At least I can see his cautious tenderness, which is a pair of eyes that we never dare to imagine." Change closed her mouth and looked into the distance again with a hazy look. "I was thinking in my heart, what are he and those women doing now? Wow, King Xiahai is back." Brain Flower immediately made a scene. "Everyone line up and welcome." A Gundam straightened his military posture and saluted. Long Yao and Shang's Haoi lined up together. "Welcome back, His Majesty the Sea King." This last tactic of playing hard to get was ingenious. "His Majesty is ready to start his career." "Go away." Xia Guixuan sat down on a rock. "Athena is over there." "Your use of the word Sea King now reminds me of that idiot Poseidon." Long Yao laughed. "How stupid is it? Say it out loud so that everyone can laugh." Xia Guixuan glanced at her. "What's there to be happy about when you're dead? You didn't learn anything else but you learned to be boring." Yes, only the father god picking up girls is not boring." Long Yao snorted coldly. "Have you forgotten that from our perspective, we should sneak over and beat up the mistress? Do you know how sensible it is to help you change the subject and resolve the embarrassment?" Xia Guixuan choked and coughed. "Well, she's not a mistress," Long Yao said. "A standard mistress, according to your schedule." Xia Guixuan raised his head and thought about it. It seemed that this was right. According to the order of Sister and Change was a standard mistress. "But how could you, Long Yao, say this? How old are you?" Long Yao seemed to know what he was going to say, and crossed his arms and said, "Don't look at us. We have nothing to do with you. I am a military advisor, a regular employee." Shang's Haoi immediately said, "I am the high priest." The scene was cold for a moment. Xia Guixuan subconsciously looked at Gundam. "That means he is waiting for you to repeat the year." "Where are you?" Brain Flower said speechlessly. "Whether I am a Gundam or a Brain Flower, why are you looking at me? You little guys are clearing yourself. Why should I butt in? It has nothing to do with me at all." According to this meaning, those who don't butt in are the ones who really have nothing to do with it. Those who are eager to say that they are military advisors and high priests are the ones who are trying to hide their true intentions. Long Yao and Shang's Haoi tasted the taste and glared at them. The three melon-eating group began to fight among themselves. Long Yu walked in a charming manner, sat next to Xia Guixuan, and exhaled, "Father God, you must be tired from fighting today. Have you seen a very beautiful hand?" Bang! Gundam slashed a sword between the two of them, and Long Yu quickly took a defensive posture. Xia Guixuan yawned. Turn into two figurines and fight on the other side. The two did not turn into figurines, and looked at him in surprise. You heard that a very beautiful hand had no reaction at all, and even the expression did not change. Isn't this right? Could it be that his mind has been occupied by the beauty of change, forgetting that others can also be beautiful? Xia Guixuan sighed. What are you looking at with those expressions? Ahua's style, the significance of the origin of the universe, the creation direction of the Big Bang, the observer of the eternal river. If it's a man, he must be extremely handsome, and if it's a woman, she must be the most beautiful in the world. All of our aesthetics are based on this. There is no need to consider this at all. Do we need to wait and see the hand to know? This time even Shangzhao couldn't help it. Father God, you and Ahua were obviously enemies before, and you were able to turn enemies into friends and cooperate with each other. Could it be that you thought of this? That's right, you think I'm stupid, but I'm actually generous. Shit, bang, the laser sword chopped down, and Xia Guixuan quickly dodged, and the rock he was sitting on had shattered into powder. Gao Da chased after him with a sword in hand. Stop right there. Such an arrogant and lustful person has never been seen in the world since the beginning of time. You will be struck by lightning. Wait a minute. I was just joking. Xia Guixuan ran away. When I was working with you, God knew what kind of person you were. Damn, are you serious? Come here, chop me. You are willing to let change hit you, then show me how white your arms are. Go to hell. Change held a rabbit and stared blankly at the bombing scene in the distance. She felt it was a bit noisy, destroying her 1,000 years of peace, but somehow, she felt so envious that she couldn't help but smile as she watched. Guanghan has been missing for thousands of years, and these are what I pray for. P.S. It's the last hour and a half, please vote for the monthly ticket. I want to add more chapters and ask for guarantee tickets, but I don't know what time they will be added, probably 1 or 2 o'clock, don't wait. Chapter 508, Kingdom of Night. The scene of Gundam chasing and hacking at Xia Guixuan was soon interrupted. In Guanghan Palace, a light suddenly flashed. The soft moonlight shone through the sky and spread across the earth. Gundam stopped and looked, and stopped hacking, because the scenery was really beautiful. In fact, for the three melanating people, this battle was not hard. The most feeling they had when they came to this plane was beauty, all kinds of beauty, whether it was the world or the people. It was still beautiful now, just like the world was shrouded in a halo, hazy and dreamy. Brainflower looked at it for a while and hummed, "Is she cheering for you?" Diverting my attention, Xia Guixuan thought to himself that how could change know that even such a small thing could divert the attention of a supreme being. It was more like giving everyone a way out. Or it would be closer to say that change was jealous, and she didn't want him to be lively with others in her territory while she was cold and lonely holding the rabbit. This is the value of playing hard to get. Naoha said sincerely, Ajuan, you have really improved. You can even make the woman who was beating you not long ago turn around to help you. Xia Guixuan, what? You can call me Ahua, but I can't call you Ajuan? How about changing it? How about Gigan? Will I die if I call you Lao Xia? I call you Ahul because you don't tell me your real name. If you tell me your real name, I will change it immediately. Naoha hesitated for a moment, but still avoided the real name, and just said, it feels awkward to call you Lao Xia, because you are really not as old as me. For a woman, is it something to be proud of being old? Others would like to pretend to be younger. Look at that rabbit, a 2,000 or 3,000-year-old monster, but she calls her rabbit all the time, and no one will be wary of her. She can also win sympathy and pity. This is called smart. You look so stupid, no wonder you were blown up. Before he finished speaking, Gundam raised the laser sword again. Okay, Xia Guixuan raised his hands in surrender and changed the subject. Look at what change is doing, Naoha said casually. Do we need to think about this? She is still making the final effort to turn the world into the Kingdom of Night. Although he seemed to be speaking casually, he actually put away his sword, which meant that he accepted Xia Guixuan's advice and pretended to be young and called Lao Xia. Long Gao Shangzhao folded his arms and watched, always feeling that the Father God's ability to deal with women is getting stronger and stronger, even to Gundam. But who is Ahua? The previous conversation with Hiwa made this confusion linger in people's minds again. They felt that Xia Guixuan might have a vague idea, but he was not sure, so he didn't reveal it. But it can be basically concluded that it will not be Pangu or Nuwa as suspected before. Because Xia Guixuan's feelings and respect for Huaxia are obvious, he would call Poseidon a fool, But he would never say the same words to his old enemies Dijun and Yi, even if Dijun and Yi might belong to Donghai in his eyes, but that is also within Huaxia. Everyone has the same black hair and black eyes, which can be considered a civil war in his eyes, and his attitude towards other pantheons is obviously different. Even his attitude towards Yunja and Athena can be seen. In terms of the internal status of each pantheon, Athena is obviously higher than Henge, but in Xia Guixuan's eyes, her status is exactly the opposite. Based on this premise, we can draw a conclusion: if Ahua is Pangunua, Xia Guixuan will never be disrespectful to her, so Ahua is very likely to be the supreme god of other pantheons, or other concepts beyond the meaning of pantheons. Regarding these, Longyao Shangxiao really doesn't know much, and it's hard to guess. Xia Guixuan always has a lot of judgments hidden in his stomach, and he won't show them until the time comes. Just like when he collected Ma Fei's soul, he buried a back end that even Longyao didn't expect. So what's the point of being a military advisor? It's as if she wasn't a captive in the Battle of Zelter. Xia Guixuan knew everything in his heart. She just needed to be in charge of Yoreo. Everyone had their own thoughts in their hearts, and they stopped arguing for a while. They all sat in the sky and watched the world. At this time, the 9 continents of the human world were being transformed by the glory of change. When Xia Guixuan attacked change, the 9 continents of the lower world were actually still in a state of panic and confusion. Before, everyone was demonized and brought back a pile of corpses. The memories of the demonization were intermittent, and they only knew that they were enemies with the emperor. Being enemies was fine, but the one who laughed last was the emperor. I don't know where he invited a group of terrifying creatures. The fight was beyond everyone's understanding, and he didn't even get hurt. The background of the emperor is unpredictable. Although the emperor calmly asked everyone to go to the lower world, as if he would let bygones be bygones, who knows if there will be a reckoning later? Everyone was in a state of panic. This was the worry about their own future, and there was also confusion about the world. Earlier, even Shi Kuang had already glimpsed the practice of the origin of this world. He had used it vaguely when fighting with Ma Fei. There were many people who were more knowledgeable than Shi Kuang. Could others see it? Then, is everyone's final advancement that kind of demonization? If so, such practice or evolution is actually unacceptable to most people. Even people with a brutal nature like Shi Kuang can't accept it. Everyone's desire for power does not mean that they want to lose their minds, nor does it mean that they are willing to become puppets of darkness. So where to go in the future? Will everyone stop practicing and be done with it? Is the so-called exploration of the origin of the world a pit? Or is this world itself a pit? Is life just a plaything of some existence? For example, the strange black fog. Just when Jia was silent and confused, the moonlight and clear light were sprinkled from the sky, covering the universe and every life. For a moment, everything was silent, and countless restless hearts slowly calmed down in the moonlight, as if the voice of the moon goddess echoed in the depths of the soul, giving people a quiet and peaceful night and heart. There was also a sense of the laws of the world, which penetrated into the soul, resonated, and then spread to every inch of the skin, gradually becoming different. The genetic changes that were deliberately suppressed by some forces finally began to return to nature. A biological system that should have been formed in a world with only night was evolving. It was a nature that was delayed for many years. Ma Fei found that his body began to change. Its limbs began to touch the ground. It was no longer a human-shaped horse head, but returned to its original horse shape. The color began to turn black, but it was not the kind of evil hideousness that looked evil at first glance. Instead, it was like black jade, dark and beautiful. The flesh and blood seemed to have turned into a flowing crystal shape, and a horn gradually protruded from the horse's head. The power pattern in the body also changed. It was no longer the martial arts' Genki, but had a dark and flowing breath. The body was so light that it seemed to have no weight, but it did not affect the operation of strength. It couldn't help but walk forward, reach the shore of the lake, and look down. Under the moonlight, a majestic and beautiful black jade unicorn was reflected in the lake. Is this the life form I should have? Ma Fei whispered to himself. Darkness is not a demon. You are not anyone's playthings. You are the creations of the holy demon plane, the spirits born and raised by nature. Change's voice echoed in the sky. This should be the kingdom of night, the synonym of beauty and mystery. The night is not the abyss, because there is the moon. Billions of creatures kowtowed in the night. Thank you, Emperor, for letting us find the origin of life. Change glanced in the direction of Xia Guixuan without leaving a trace. and it was unclear whether she was looking at Xia Guixuan or the holy demon. After a long pause, she said, "Don't call me Emperor." The creatures of the night kowtowed again. "Yes, our supreme moon god. Change, what are you doing? Xia Guixuan is watching us. It's so embarrassing. What's the point of calling yourself an emperor or a god in front of him? And your real mother goddess is still squatting in Gundam. She is the one who gave birth to all your lives, the real supreme god." Long Yao's complaining soul could no longer be suppressed. "Come on, queen attributes, goddess attributes, another one is completed. Does she know that you like this tune the most?" Xia Guixuan said with a straight face. "Yes, your majesty the Fox King. P.S. I really didn't make it to 1 or 2 o'clock, it's almost 4 o'clock. I hesitated when I clicked to publish. I don't know if it will disturb the brothers who have turned on the update reminder. I'll post it now. I have to finish what I promised, although it's late but it's here. I'll ask for the guaranteed monthly ticket again." Chapter 509 Father God also has to face Sheffield. Long Yu then remembered that if this attribute is discussed, he is also one of them. This sentence is almost equivalent to declaring his possession. Long Yu did not say anything to refute, but moved closer to him again, and put his hand around his neck. "Then do you want to do something with the Fox King on this beautiful night?" Xia Guixuan's mouth twitched, as if he could see the frosted eyes of change in the distance. "I also want to have something happen with the fox on a beautiful night, but can we change the night? Not when a resentful woman in the cold palace is still staring at it. This is called eye drops. Besides, this night is the beauty created by her. Do you want her to feel a little involved? Unfortunately, this fox is far from being so obedient. She is here to have eye drops. We have traveled thousands of miles for a year to come here, and we thought it was a major business, but in the end, is it just to help you pick up girls? If I don't give you some eye drops, do you think we are really just figurines that were casually molded?" Xia Guixuan once again realized what Sheffield is. A woman's jealousy is always suppressed, not absent. She can give you a slap at any time. The key is that this thing cannot be completely suppressed by status, such as when you still have some face. If you don't handle it well, you will get angry. You can't just push her away. Especially in this kind of scene, it is painful and happy. Originally, Long Yao was used to being intimate on the way. She often hugged and touched each other, and kissed, but she never let you touch her properly, and don't even think about taking off her clothes. After all, in the Gundam cabin all the way, the stinky brain flower was watching and eating melons, and everyone was embarrassed. For example, Shang Zhaoi had already agreed to it, but usually he only let him sleep on his thighs, and he was thin-skinned and refused to do anything else. But now who cares whether the brain flower sees it or not? Anyway, it's all for others to see. So Long Yao's movements became bigger. Shang Zhaoi was stunned watching from the side. "Speaking of which, your level is much better than Xia Guixuan. She drives a fat car, and you treat yourself as a fat car. The driving experience has been seriously upgraded." Seeing that the father god couldn't get rid of him, it turned out that luxury cars were men's favorite. Snap, the soft moonlight became stiff and cold, and there was 1,000 miles of clear frost on the moon palace, so cold that a layer of icicles condensed on the surface of the Gundam. Naoho wiped his beloved Gundam with heartache. "What a sin. No, wait, don't do this." Xia Guixuan finally began to lean back. "Wait a minute, doesn't father want it?" Long Yao whispered in his ear, breathing like Orchid. "If you miss this time, you won't have this store in the future. Fuck, come on, you're not a man if you don't come." Xia Guixuan said helplessly. "Hey, isn't the military advisor here to help me accomplish things? You're not here to ruin my things, okay? I helped you accomplish Long Yao's thing. Wasn't this the commission from father a few days ago?" Xia Guixuan, actually, this is also telling her that father is not short of women around him. Don't be so pretentious, right? This is also helping father. Not really, not really. If you want to kill two birds with one stone, then please forgive this military advisor for his inability. Father, choose one. Long Yao said choose one, but in fact she didn't give him the opportunity to choose. The red lips had already been imprinted on his lips, blocking all his words. Xia Guixuan thought that his skills as a Sea King were already in place, but he was finally defeated here. He had no idea how to deal with it properly. He suddenly thought in his heart, how did other seniors deal with the Sheffield? He still didn't read enough books. He must supplement his knowledge this time, otherwise he couldn't keep up with the development of the situation. Speaking of which, Long Yao's last few words also made sense. Everything should be rolled up, not referring to Change, but to Long Yao herself. If Change hadn't been jealous of this incident, she wouldn't have been so proactive. Would she be the one who was holding up? Yes, when Yao Wu teased her, she also rolled up. This fox is actually a little fighting cock in her heart, haha. Xia Guixuan felt that he had advanced again. Just when he thought he could consider a plan to take advantage of more, Change's voice finally came from a distance. The distinguished guests have come from afar, and Change didn't greet them before. I'm sorry. Rabbit, please invite the guests to the Moon Palace to rest and do your best to entertain them, Change interrupted directly. It was indeed her fault for not inviting the guests to rest. Long Yu would have resentment and start sure field directly. This might be the reason. Even Shang Xiaoi was a little unhappy. Did she understand it now? At this time, she apologized and invited them to stay. It would kill two birds with one stone without showing any hostility. Was it her military advisor who started to make plans? Long Yu couldn't continue to flirt with her anymore. She stood up with some embarrassment and muttered, Athena still cares about this kind of wisdom? The so-called war in wisdom refers to the war between women. Shang Xiaoi picked her up and put her on his back in a bad mood. Let's go. Don't embarrass yourself. Long Yu hugged her waist and whispered in her ear, Hey, aren't you jealous? Yes, Shang Xiaoi replied with a straight face. Why did you come here from such a long way? Is it just to see the father god and her being affectionate? You don't even have a cup of tea to drink, and you have to sleep outside in the open air. That's right. Why don't you say anything? Because I can't play your game, Shang Xiaoi said in a bad mood. There are so many people watching, and there are people I don't know watching from afar. How can you be so embarrassing? Long Yu looked down on him. Why don't you say it's embarrassing? Being reserved and flirty is more advanced than being overt, right, Shang Xiaoi? Actually, the flirting trick is very simple. I'll teach you. We've been good sisters for so many years, Long Yao said confidently. As long as you and I join forces, I guarantee that he will lose his soul, Shang Xiaoi said leisurely. Over there are 3 people joining forces. Long Yao turned around. Ahua. Gundam ran over, picked up Long Yao, and threw him directly into the Moon Palace. Go and have fun by yourself. I'm rooting for you. Xia Guixuan glanced at a fox flying into the Moon Palace on the clouds, and suddenly laughed. What fun, such a fairy path. If this is not a fairy, then it is not. For a day like this. Why envy the immortals? Over there, Change had a blank expression on her face, but she was actually a little nervous. She whispered to her attendants, they're coming in. How are we going to talk later? Athena said, Sister, you have to act like a hostess and a lady of honor. Arrange the reception. We will help you, but they are the ones who have always followed him. We haven't seen each other for so many years. No matter how many years we haven't seen each other, whoever comes first will come first. The rabbit raised his ears at the side. We have the support of Sister Xiao Siming, so we are invincible. Those vixens are nothing. Master, you have to have confidence. With a bang, a fox broke through the roof and fell down, landing right in the middle of the 3 people. I recommend Guan Guan's new book Too Reckless. It will be on the shelf soon. Please support it. There is no need to introduce this book. The previous book The Prince is Very Fierce received countless praises. It is also a rare book that I recommend from beginning to end, proving that I am not a poisonous fan. Ha ha ha. Chapter 510, Fox fights a group of females. It was not until Brain was thrown out that Long Yao realized how big the gap between them was. I am also a taking, but after being thrown like this, I can't even muster any strength. I can't stop or turn around. I can only watch myself fall into the Moon Palace. In a hurry, Long Yao only had time to do one thing, turn herself into fox. At least she didn't appear in front of Xia Guixuan in the seductive look she had just shown. It was similar to her usual desperate situation of turning into a figurine to run away, but this time she couldn't cover her face by turning into a figurine, so she had to turn into fox. It can be seen that this fox is not as shameless as she looks on the surface. Xia Guixuan was right. In fact, she is the most pretentious one. She is very coquettish and unwilling to do it, which is the opposite of the 2 extremes reflected in her appearance. Ding ding ding. 2 peerless beauties representing the east and the west appeared above the fox, plus a rabbit, staring at her curiously. The fox shrank back, afraid. JPG. Just now, Change asked Athena uncertainly, Was it this fox who was twisting and turning and kissing him just now? It was too shaky and I couldn't see clearly. The fox covered his face. No, I'm not me. I am an adopted fox, just like this rabbit. Athena's expression became very strange, and she was hesitant to speak. In fact, everyone knows it's you. Even if you can't see through your changes, you can count who is missing from the approaching team outside, right? Change asked this not because she didn't know, but because she didn't dare to believe it. Before, she was still thinking in her mind how to greet this fox and the centaur outside as a big woman, and gunned him. As a result, the fox fell from the sky. Is this a direct decapitation operation behind enemy lines? Jade Rabbit rolled her eyes and turned back into a little girl. She picked up the fox and touched it. Poor little fox, have you been bullied by bad guys? Come and play with us. The fox nodded. The rabbit took out a carrot. Here you go. The fox held the carrot and was speechless. I don't eat carrots, the rabbit said. This isn't for you, the rabbit said seriously. We took you in, right? This is for you to practice repaying a favor. The air stagnated for a moment, and the style of the film changed from a children's film to an adult film in an instant. Long Yu knew that he couldn't escape from the environment deep behind enemy lines before everyone arrived, and thought to himself that he would be killed if he stuck his head out anyway. So do you dare to stew me? Simply sat down on the ground and began to say sarcastically, it seems that rabbit eats in the shape of repaying a favor every day. You must be very experienced in repaying a favor in the future, right? Rabbit said. Rabbit's benefactor is the master. Rabbit will repay the master in any way he wants. Long Yao said, our father God saved your master just now. Your master asked you to repay her for her, but you kept trying to match them up. You sold yourself and helped count the money. Oh, could it be that you wanted to be with him and deliberately match them up? Rabbit's eyes straightened for a moment, thinking that it seemed so. Whether the master needed her to do that was another matter. As a dowry maid, was she supposed to do that? I jump up and down to be a traitor and go through the motions. After all this time, am I the one who gave it away? By the way, I heard that someone interpreted the story of the West Chamber. The little maid Hong Niang tried so hard to match Ying Ying and Zhang Shen because she fell in love with Zhang Shen. Whether she wanted to marry was another matter. The key was whether her master would be provoked to think so. Rabbit glanced at Change secretly. Change had a blank expression on her face and she couldn't tell anything. Athena felt that the fortress seemed to be breached from the inside. How could a rabbit be a match for a fox? As for Change, who looked cold and confident, she was actually confused and might not understand these provocations. Athena felt that she had to help, so she said, Rabbit is just joking. Miss Fox is a guest from afar. Rabbit, why are you feeding her carrots? Don't you even invite me to sit down? I'll go make tea for the girl. Long Yao asked curiously, do you drink tea too? Isn't it coffee? Athena smiled slightly. Not to mention the kingdom of God, the ancient Greeks also drank wine, nectar, cow and sheep milk, not coffee. As for tea, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Everyone drinks it this way, and it's also a way of entertaining guests. Long Yao finally turned back into human form and sat down on the chair in a dignified manner, waiting for Athena to serve tea. She said, I wonder how good the Greek gods are at making tea. I'm looking forward to it. Henge, who had been in a state of stagnation, suddenly moved and grabbed Athena. Serve the guests the best sweet-scented osmanthus wine, so that they won't say we are rude. Athena was stunned for a moment, and before she could react to what he meant, Long Yao knew that her little plan had been broken. What is serving tea? With such a relationship, how can the host and the guest serve tea? Only serving tea to the sister. Whoever serves tea is inferior. Henge didn't understand anything else, but she understood this point better than anyone else. How could Athena see this little trick? If she really showed her the Greek way of making tea, she would lose. Athena finally came to her senses, her teeth chattering. You are bullying me, a foreigner, right? She turned around calmly to get the osmanthus wine, saying, so what? The ancient Greeks drank was just so-so, but the foxes in ancient Greece ate something special. Long Yao was somewhat interested. What do they eat? Not carrots, right? They eat children. Athena took the wine and filled Long Yao's glass with a smile. Our most famous fox is called Awakens tumesius. Not only does it eat children, it also has a very powerful trait. It will never be caught by any creature, just like you. Smart, Long Yao said. This doesn't seem to prove anything other than your barbarity. Since this fox can never be caught, what happened to it? This evil fox ravaged the city of Thebes, and the king got a magical dog named Laylaps that could catch any prey. So it and the fox chased and fled, and neither could do anything to the other. Long Yao blinked. Athena smiled. This is the yin and yang of China, the eternal cycle. Nothing is absolute. It seems to be talking about philosophy and mythology, but in the context of this moment, it is clearly a satire on the fox, which is a creature that jumps up and down and flees for a lifetime after being caught by a dog. By the way, it also pointed out that even though you are very favored now, nothing is absolute, you know. Change understood, took a deep breath, and showed her first smile, feeling very happy. She didn't know what she was feeling happy about. Half an hour ago, she was still telling Xia Guixuan don't come tomorrow, and now she felt very happy because she won a fight with a fox spirit. So, you have to roll, otherwise how can someone benefit from it? But did you really win? But Long Yao smiled slightly. You are too disadvantaged to talk to me about foxes. Do you know Lao Xia's bloodline? Athena's face changed instantly, and Change's smile froze on her face. Long Yao propped up her chin with her hand and said leisurely, it's useless to have someone as a backstage person. Next to him, the fox is the biggest. With the resounding words, the chest resonated, the wave surged, and the ups and downs made Change think of the moon, so wide and big. Looking around the field, she was indeed the biggest. Long Yao, who was alone and deep behind enemy lines, was killing people. No one knew at this time and place that it was to protect the dignity of her daughter's main wife, and she exploded. Others just thought she was jealous and quarreling. Who would have thought that her pattern was already in the atmosphere? Just when Long Yao felt that she had won a great victory, a rabbit jumped into her arms, stretched out its hand and poked it, showing a nothing special smile, then turned around and twisted its butt towards Long Yao, as if saying, come and touch it. Is it as elastic as me? Long Yao's head was full of exclamation marks. Could it be like this? Just as she was hesitating whether to change back to her fox body and compete with a rabbit to see who was more elastic, a dry cough finally came from outside the door, and Xia Guixuan came. Is the war escalating, or is he the king of the harem, with all the concubines bowing to him? Naoha sat in the Gundam, turned around and looked around, and saw all the parties involved, bitterly hating that no one was with her to open the market. Little did she know that Long Yao was most angry at this moment, because this guy wanted to watch the fun and deliberately threw himself in, causing a verbal battle with the females, and one fox could not fight three mouths. You are also a woman. Wait, sooner or later you will know what it means that those who watch the movie will eventually become the movie. P.S. Please guarantee the minimum monthly ticket please. Chapter 511, Peace. After the noise, Xia Guixuan initially planned to come quickly to rescue Long Yao, especially since he was so scared at first that he turned into fox. It looked so miserable. As a result, Long Yao started to kill without saying a word, while Xia Guixuan slowed down and observed along the way. Change's attitude was very interesting. She was completely pushed by the situation to start the competition mode. I'm afraid that she didn't even think about doing such a thing a few seconds ago. Long Yao suddenly appeared from the sky and started a group battle, which directly aroused Change's resistance and competition. So she was confused and cold, and started the battle subconsciously. Her mentality was simply amazing. She probably couldn't summarize it herself. She might even think that she had decided not to see him before, so why did they quarrel over the ranking of the harem? She didn't even know why. Xia Guixuan, however, was watching the fire from the sidelines. Okay, he first whispered to Long Yao, Hange has been lonely for so many years. I owe her. For my sake, give her some. Long Yao was stunned, and her cockfighting state slowly calmed down. She pouted her lips and hugged the dead rabbit in front of her that was twisting its butt and patted it. The rabbit thought she was going to fight, and was about to explode, but saw Long Yao holding it in his arms, pressing it into his rabbit, and patting its head. Rabbit, the tit-for-tat fighting spirit just now suddenly couldn't find a target. She was so comfortable here. Similarly, Athena, who had been quite eager to fight like a cockfighting cock, shrank as soon as Xia Guixuan appeared, and honestly lowered her head to lead the way. Please sit down. No need to sit down. We are not here for a meeting, Xia Guixuan said to Change very naturally. Long Yao's AOI has traveled a long way for a year, and it is very hard. Now it's over. You should take good care of it and arrange some better housing and resources. After this battle, everyone will have some breakthrough opportunities, so let's rest for a while. Change subconsciously responded, yes, After saying it, I realized why it was so natural. Have you finished talking about your grievances? Why is it like a husband telling his wife to entertain guests? But this is quite what she wants, the attitude of the hostess. If you want to refute, you won't do it at this time. Isn't that stupid? The argument was in vain. Henge quickly adjusted her mentality and bowed to Xiaoru, who was following behind Xia Guixuan. Thank you, sister, for coming thousands of miles to help. May I know your name? Xiaoru also had a desire to quarrel, but he couldn't do it in this situation. He could only introduce himself and introduce Long Gao. In the end, he couldn't help but say, we have followed Father God in battles for a long time, so there's nothing to thank him for. On the surface, it means that we are subordinates, but the actual emphasis is on long term. We have accompanied him in battles all over the country. Can a woman on the moon count the distance? Henge understood, but she didn't respond to Long Gao as she did just now. Instead, she smiled magnanimously. Thank you for your hard work, sisters. Xiaoru, why did he still want to quarrel with her? However, Henge's next sentence was a little serious. Although this world was evolved and nurtured by the broken arm of the holy demon, after a long period of creation, it will naturally derive some meanings beyond the broken arm of the holy demon itself. Just like the broken arm itself is not a pure yin attribute. It lacks yin and yang because of the one arm. However, this eternal moon, the Long Taoyin, naturally evolved in this extreme direction, which was not expected at the beginning of creation. The Gundam figurine sat on Xia Guixuan's shoulder and nodded. So there are actually many things in this world that are beyond the limit of your creation. They are extremely unique and wonderful creations, Henge said. For example, the moon fountain in the moon palace, the Zuanine osmanthus wood, the night flame grass, etc., can all be said to be first-class natural treasures. It is difficult to find them in other planes. At most, they are substitutes, and they are downgraded. Including the osmanthus wine we are drinking now, it is not the conventional osmanthus wine. Everyone, just rest here with peace of mind, and it will make your trip worthwhile. After saying that, she walked over naturally and came to Long Gao, and pulled the rabbit out casually. Don't rely on others, take the guests to the Taoyin palace. Oh, the rabbit obediently turned back into little girl, holding Long Gao's hand and said, I'll take you there. It's very beautiful over there, under the osmanthus tree, beside the moon spring. It's the most beautiful and most conducive place for practice in our moon palace. Although Long Gao felt that change was still showing off her hostess status and wanted to find something to do, she remembered Xia Guixuan's voice transmission just now. Give some face. Thinking about it, she felt that the woman had made up for her previous impoliteness. She would only make herself look petty and boring if she kept caring about it. So she turned around and pulled Xiaoru and said, let's go and take a look. Xiaoru smiled and said, I am indeed looking forward to the beauty of the moon palace. Athena said hurriedly, the moon palace is short of manpower, and two can't take care of it. I'll go with you. Hey, Change raised her hand a little, meaning that you don't go. If you go, I will be alone with him. It's not easy to say this in public, so Athena pretended not to understand and took Xiaoru away in silence, just like running for her life. How could she dare to face Xia Guixuan? She didn't know if Xia Guixuan heard her talk about the fox before, and whether he minded. Who would stand there when there was a chance to run away? She decisively defected. The next moment, a Gundam was thrown out of the door, and with a bang, the door closed. The four women outside looked at each other, and then turned to look at Gundam together, and their expressions all became very strange. Everyone has been making a fuss for a long time, but it turns out that they are all paving the way for him. The subtle estrangement between him and Change seems to have been eliminated just like that. Change has participated in the fight and even served as the hostess. Isn't it funny that she still says I don't want to see you at this time? That, Long Gao hesitated. I think I'm here to fight, not to be his wingman. Gundam sat cross-legged on the ground, looked up with contempt. You are useless. I sent a message saying I would give him face, and you gave it. Xiaoru is honest, but you are such a waste. Xiaoru, Long Gao said, Xiaoru and I are his subordinates. Since he said so, we should give him at least face in front of others. You are not subject to this restriction, so why don't you say it? I'm just an outsider. How can I butt in on your family affairs? Long Gao pinched Gundam's neck and shook him. Then why did you cause trouble for us along the way? If it weren't for you, Xiaoru would have eaten him up long ago. Xiaoru, hey. Don't bring me up all the time, I'm just a horse. Cough cough, Gundam pretended to cough. I won't add any more in the future, okay? If you have the guts, keep rolling. Anyway, you have many postures, and change can't beat you. Athena Jade Rabbit listened as if in a dream. We are solemnly taking you to the most blessed place in the world to rest. What are you doing? In your mind, is this matter more important than the way of heaven? Athena looked at Gundam and hesitated to speak. Gundam glared at her, and Athena lowered her head and said nothing. At this time in the bedroom, Change was almost dumbfounded standing there. Her slender hands pinched the corners of her clothes unconsciously, and she almost twisted them into dough. She didn't know how the situation turned out like this. She was still angry with him in her heart, and she didn't intend to pay attention to him. How did it become the rhythm of the couple turning off the lights and going to bed after entertaining the guests? But she also knew in her heart that the little fighting cock Longyao stopped making trouble, most likely because he secretly stopped it. This kind of stop may actually leave a thorn in Longyao's heart, depending on what he said. But in any case, this action is to protect her Change. This is a certain fact. Change's heart was in a mess. A man and a woman were alone in the night. She always felt that the atmosphere was changing rapidly and heating up. However, her heart was stuck in her throat. She wanted to speak but couldn't. She wanted to run but it was like roots under her feet. She couldn't move at all. Xia Guixuan suddenly moved. Change's heart almost jumped out of her throat, and the corner of her clothes was almost twisted off. Xia Guixuan didn't walk towards her directly, but just walked to the window, slightly opened the window, and looked at the clear light outside. The fragrance of osmanthus drifted into the room, sweet and comfortable. I don't know if the place you chose to live in must be beautiful, or because of you, the world has become beautiful, Xia Guixuan suddenly spoke. It was such sweet words as soon as he opened his mouth. Change responded a little nervously. This world is beautiful. The Guanghan Palace where you were at that time was also beautiful. I was in a hurry and missed those, Xia Guixuan whispered. I missed you too. Change seemed to be hit by a hammer and couldn't speak at all. Xia Guixuan turned his head and looked at her, his eyes burning. After meeting you, I have been thinking about one thing. In terms of folk customs, legal principles, social cognition and other social attributes of human beings, you seem to be the first and only official concubine of Dong Huang Xia Guixuan. Chapter 512, 1,000 years late. Yes, this sentence is the essence. Xia Guixuan and Change have not spoken much, and the two can even be said to be unfamiliar with each other. Why did Change never think of looking for someone else? Why was she so resentful towards him? Why was she the object of subconsciously competing with other women for his favor? Because in social cognition, she is his concubine. Just like Xiao Simon completely treated her as a brother-in-law, giving her assistance and entrusting her with important tasks. Whether she felt sour or not is another matter, she obviously acknowledged this position. When Xia Guixuan said, after I defeat Yi, I will get you in accordance with the rules of our tribe, he established an engagement contract, and when he defeated Yi, the contract was completed and the relationship was settled. Even Change herself thought so in her heart, and she said please have mercy on me. Isn't that a typical sign of the wedding night? Marry a chicken and follow the chicken. Although the idiot ran away on the wedding night, the belonging has indeed been determined. Even the thousand-edged phantom monster talked about this relationship. However, they are really not familiar with each other. Change turned her head away, not wanting him to see her sad look. The next moment, Xia Guixuan's hand touched her delicate cheek. Change shook her head with some resistance. Don't touch me. You are surrounded by beautiful women now, and you don't need me. Besides, you are not interested in women, even if there are bright stars around me. Xia Guixuan's voice sounded in her ears. You are still the only moon. Change's heart beat violently, and she couldn't help but gasp. You. What's wrong with you now? These words, what? Xia Guixuan smiled slightly. Do you like me more when I was so stupid before? I think it's weird. No, who said I like you? Xia Guixuan said. I can still say the same things as before. Change held her breath and looked at him nervously. But Xia Guixuan said calmly, in this world, it is still very rare to find a woman as beautiful as you. I didn't pay attention to it before, but now I like her and want her. This was indeed much colder than before, but Change found that she was more used to it. It also felt more logical. Was it a masochism? Xia Guixuan said, conquering the enemy's land and playing with the enemy's wife are the pleasures of men. You meet this condition very well. I play with you once, just like humiliating him once. As he spoke, The hand on Change's face suddenly moved down and lifted her chin. This is a conquest that is 2 or 3,000 years late, and it should have happened in the past, right? Change felt very sad when she heard it, but she did feel that this was Xia Guixuan. So if he wanted to kiss her tenderly, she might resist instinctively, but if he said such words and lifted her chin to kiss her, Change felt strangely that she couldn't even think of resisting at all. Maybe he is right. This is the dialogue that should have happened thousands of years ago in the middle of the night, and it is about to be imprinted in my cognition. Even if it is embarrassing. Xia Guixuan suddenly smiled. Look, women. He let go of his hand, turned to the window again, supported his hands on the windowsill, sighed, and smiled. You are more accustomed to words that even I find unpleasant to hear. I think women should like to hear words, but you are nervous. Change felt a little teased, and said angrily behind her, because it's you. Xia Guixuan turned sideways and waved, don't stand there. When you looked at the moon in the past, didn't you think that there was someone shoulder to shoulder with you? Change was stunned for a moment, but she was really moved in her heart. She pursed her lips and walked forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. The two looked at the night view quietly for a while, and Xia Guixuan sighed. It is beautiful, but it is indeed monotonous and lonely when you look at it for a long time. Change pursed her lips and said nothing. Xia Guixuan continued, in the future, I will spend more time with you. Henge stared at his profile in a daze, completely confused by his jumping speech that was always in a template. It was as if he had been switching between various modes, letting her find out what kind of Xia Guixuan she liked more. Xia Guixuan seemed to understand what she was thinking, and smiled and said, I'm not intentionally switching between various modes for you to see, but I want to tell you that Xia Guixuan has not changed in any fundamental way. Henge really felt that she had gotten to know Xia Guixuan again today. She didn't ask any questions, but waited quietly for the next words. Those unpleasant words just now were not deliberately made up to fit your memory, but the real evil intention hidden in my heart. You do have such typical attributes in my heart, which is also what attracts me. There is no need to whitewash it. Xia Guixuan paused and said calmly, so Xia Guixuan is still Xia Guixuan, but with a little more humanity. Change finally asked, humanity, seeing you lonely, I feel pity. I don't want to say those hurtful words anymore, and treat you as an object to satisfy my conquering mentality. At least I should give you a warm family, and you will no longer be lonely. Xia Guixuan said slowly, the combination of the two mentalities is me, so don't be nervous about my sweet words. I'm not teasing you on purpose. You will hear them often in the future. This may be the first time that Xia Guixuan has been fully fired up. The experience he has gained in the flowers since he recovered from his injury and came out of retreat has accumulated and blossomed, and his magical skills have been perfected. How could Change bear it? The nervous and awkward mood gradually subsided with his words. Looking at his warm smile, Change suddenly had a feeling that we just met today. Xia Guixuan reached out and stroked her cheek again. Get married first, then get familiar with each other. This is an ancient Chinese custom, but for you and me, it came a little late. Change's eyes gradually became hazy, and she tilted her head slightly and whispered, it's still ill-intentioned. Xia Guixuan smiled. If it were a strange woman, some of my thoughts could indeed be called ill-intentioned. But for my concubine, isn't it just what you want? This thing is called public grain, okay? Change finally couldn't hold back her expression, stamped her feet and turned around. What century is it? Even rabbits can watch TV. It's not the same as getting married first and then getting familiar with each other. After all, she didn't refute my concubine and tacitly acknowledged that they were married. So of course she couldn't leave. Xia Guixuan's arms had already wrapped around her waist, and with a little force, Change fell into his arms. The night was getting more and more hazy. One can almost hear the sound of Change's heartbeat, thump, thump, mixed with a little messy breathing, so obvious in the silent night. You, she panted softly and said with difficulty, let go. No. Xia Guixuan leaned over and whispered in her ear, let's get familiar with each other now, starting from hugging each other. For example, get familiar with you're in my arms, and you're in my breath. Change's tense body softened instantly, leaning in his arms silently. The night was still very cold, but his arms were very warm, just like his current words. Even though he knew clearly that his familiarity was not well-intentioned. Whether it was possessiveness and lust, he understood her beauty and wanted to possess her, or he wanted to play with the enemy's wife to satisfy his little thoughts, this was the seductive attribute that belonged to her. Change. Maybe it was both. He did not whitewash it. But it was so irresistible. From caressing her face, to her chin, to wrapping around her waist, she leaned softly in his arms. His lips were right beside her ear, her breath itching. His hands were at her waist, seemingly obedient, moving up and down at any time. But Change couldn't even find the will to struggle. She looked at the night with a hazy look, trying to flash some pictures in her mind to divert her attention, but she sadly found that there were only a few pictures in her life. Just like a static wallpaper, it was just a beautiful empty shell. The blue sea and blue sky in the wallpaper, his face was still in her heart every night. Then in his arms and breath, the illusory face gradually became real, condensing into the present. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513, Step by Step. Xia Guixuan did not do anything. Maybe if I had to do something, I could succeed, even if I had forced the door open and pressed her against the wall yesterday. At most, she would cry a little, but she could still live her life after crying, and maybe she could even get rid of her worry. Of course, Rabbit's script has its own reasons. When it comes to understanding change, who understands better than Jade Rabbit? But Xia Guixuan still did nothing, just hugged her quietly and talked to her in a random manner. The topics were actually not very nutritious, such as, how long have you been in this plane? Almost 3 years. How can Rabbit look like someone without any natural talents and treasures? There are resources, and Rabbit is actually smart. Oh, and she actually doesn't like carrots. Haha, feed her something else next time. Why does it sound a bit vulgar when you say this? Your heart is starting to become impure. No, if you don't believe me, let me touch you. There were also some other miscellaneous things. No matter what the topic was, they would eventually turn to the little ambiguity between the two. Just like what happens most often in the world, a young man and woman would walk hand in hand under the moon after dinner, and when they were tired, they would sit on a chair in the park and whisper to each other. When passers-by in the park saw them, they would smile kindly. Then, when people weren't paying attention, they would quietly kiss each other on the face, or quietly touch places they shouldn't touch, and look at passers-by like a thief, their hearts pounding with fear of being seen. The moon would bend its smiling face in such scenes. Those were fragments worth cherishing in people's memories when they grow old. This pair of men and women who had been married for thousands of years had never had such a fragment, and they even rarely talked. Change's body became softer and softer, and she completely relaxed, with a smile on her face that hadn't been seen for a long time. Even though his hand was unruly, if you don't believe it, touch it, it gave her a sense of security that she had a sense of belonging. At this moment, Xia Guixuan's mind was a little erratic. He was thinking, have you ever had similar fragments with his sister? I did have some with my sister. Although we didn't touch each other much, we sat side by side under the moonlight, talked about the past and the future, and discussed the way of the Tao. That was true. My sister's dreamy profile under the moonlight was no less beautiful than Change in my arms at the moment. It was a pity that they were too respectful to each other. You thought he was a gentleman, but in fact he was a fool. So he took a step closer and lowered his head to kiss Change's cheek. Because of Change's practice, her body was always icy and cool. It was very comfortable to hug her and touch her. But at this moment, when he kissed her, he could feel the hot temperature. Her cheeks were almost burning, but she didn't resist at all. Instead, she was a little shy and happy. Xia Guixuan knew that this state was the best. If he wanted to do it all at once, the little love atmosphere he had created before would immediately be changed by naked lust. But this can also add some small interactive guidance, such as, he kissed Change's earlobe and whispered, do you want to get familiar with mine too? Change understood what he meant. Bit her lower lip and glanced at him with a look of resentment, but finally leaned over her cherry lips and pecked him on the face. Is that enough? Not enough. My face is big. Change couldn't help laughing, but still obediently moved the landing point, and finally kissed his neck gently. She also licked it mischievously, just like the little jade rabbit she raised eating. Xia Guixuan raised his head slightly and stroked her hair to show encouragement. As expected, they were familiar with each other, and they were familiar with the postures they were good at. But Change felt a little ashamed, mistakenly thinking that his action of stroking her hair was a signal to go down, which was a bit too much. She opened some distance with a look of reproach and whispered, Your Majesty, Xia Guixuan blinked and realized what she was complaining about. He couldn't help laughing. Do you really think I only care about that now? I don't know what kind of crappy TV you and Rabbit watch. Are they all AV? Change bit her lower lip and said, it has nothing to do with what TV you watch. It has to do with your Majesty's body reaction at this moment. You really thought I couldn't feel it, and you're still talking. Xia Guixuan's old face flushed slightly. He is a normal man. It has nothing to do with what I think. It doesn't mean that I have to do this or that, Change said. In novels, men will use the excuse of being suffocated to coax women. Xia Guixuan was distressed. The development of this crappy era has completely destroyed the fairy flavor. When I go back, I will arrest all those who write books and only allow them to write above the neck. Change stretched out her jade fingers and scratched his cheek. Only the officials are allowed to set fires, and the people are not allowed to light lamps. I won't set fires either, Xia Guixuan said confidently. I didn't intend to use such a crude method to fool you. Change also blinked. Then what high-end method does your Majesty have? What you did just now, were you trying to learn from the Jade Rabbit? Yes, actually, no. Do you have to learn this? Of course, Change would not claim that she knows everything, so she could only let the rabbit take the blame. Xia Guixuan said, then can you learn how to pound medicine from her? Change almost laughed out loud, and pushed him away. Let the real owner give you the original experience in the future. I'm clumsy, so I'd better not learn this. Xia Guixuan was stunned, and then he remembered that this was a buy one get one free deal. That rabbit, well, is pretty cute. It's just a little small. Speaking of which, that group of people went to the Taiyang temple. They have been there for so long, so they won't fight each other, right? Xia Guixuan subconsciously let go of his divine consciousness and took a look. HU, far away in the Taiyang temple, the little rabbit girl sneezed. Several women were bathing naked in the moon spring, looking at her curiously. Although the water from this spring was cold, it had many benefits. How could you, a master of the highest level, sneeze here? The rabbit scratched its head and said, why are you all looking at me? Shouldn't you be looking at that Gundam? A Gundam is also taking a bath. Brain flower, why can't Gundam take a bath? You have a narrow vision, Rabbit. Long you said, don't you want to go back and serve the master? I asked you to bring guests to the spring. But you took off your clothes and took a bath with us. What a little maid, the rabbit grinned and said, of course I can't go back. If I go back now, I will be roasted as a rabbit. I couldn't help but said, looking at a pure white little rabbit, it's all black when you cut it open. It's more knowledgeable than us. At first we thought you were a cute little girl when we saw you like that. We were really blind, the rabbit said. Am I not cute? I held it in for a long time before he uttered, very cute, the rabbit said. I just watch a lot of dramas. This is called theory. Unlike you who are already very experienced, you act like you are envious. Long you said contemptuously, do you really want to put it into practice, so you try your best to match your master up? The rabbit jumped up and rubbed against Long Yao. I like this of my sister. Go away. Long Yao rolled over while hugging the rabbit, and waves appeared in the moon spring. Your Majesty, what's wrong with you? Your Majesty, Change's voice startled Xia Guixuan, and Xia Guixuan coughed twice, then looked down. When she was hit by mistake before, Change raised her eyebrows and shouted go to hell, but within just one day, she had become shy and angry. Your Majesty, be gentle. You are distracted. Xia Guixuan blinked and was about to explain a few words to cover up, but saw Change lowered her head slightly, and whispered, you are not happy just because I don't pound the medicine, and you said you were just accompanying me. She started to pound the medicine aggrievedly, imitating her own rabbit, with some careful apology. Your Majesty, give me some time. Don't be too anxious. Xia Guixuan swallowed back everything he wanted to say. There was no need to say it. Looking at the unparalleled face of the moon goddess in front of him, he really felt that even if Wusheng himself came at this moment, he would be able to beat them all to pieces, and whoever came would die. Chapter 514, the tree is still like this. Of course no one will come at this moment. Although Xia Guixuan had already determined that the antivirus software would be activated, the strength on their side was a bit outrageous. No matter how much Xia Guixuan refused to admit that he was supreme, that was his claim. Others would most likely treat him as supreme. Even if he was only evaluated as half a step, plus a brain flower with broken limbs and arms, the two together should barely be equal to supreme, right? Long Yao Hanj, Athena, Sen-taking, Shangzhe Yutu, 2 peak Wuxiang, plus a group of Wuxiang in the lower realm. Such strength is extremely terrifying. If the other party wants to take any contingency measures, they must hold a meeting to discuss and make a decision. Besides, this matter is a little complicated. What exactly does the other party think of Naohua? What does he think of him, Xia Guixuan, and what is their attitude towards the chemical reaction of the cooperation between the two? What kind of existence is Henge in their eyes, and what about Xiao Siming? What about the entire Jinuj system? And what about the entire Chinese God system? Based on Xia Guixuan's basic understanding of politics, assuming that the other party is a group, it is difficult to reach an internal unity in the short term when facing such a matter. The specific operational proposals after reaching a unity still need to be discussed. So it is normal to be calm in the short term. But it also means that once someone comes, it will be very difficult to deal with, because it is a rigorous discussion to solve the problem, and it is definitely not just someone sent here. Theoretically, you should run away immediately at this time, but Xia Guixuan knows that it is meaningless. From the moment Change took action to change the plane and form a real kingdom of night, Xia Guixuan knew that Change wanted to keep this plane. Whether she had feelings for the place or felt that the creatures of Jiazhao were innocent, she wanted to maintain and hope that the plane would be on the right track. She would not want to be occupied by the other party again as their observation and testing field. This means that you can't abandon the plane and run away. With such a large plane, it would be slower than the Emperor's uncle carrying people across the river. Where to run? It is meaningless to go for a few days first. If you are caught up casually, you might as well take advantage of these few days to manage the plane and deploy defenses. Xia Guixuan had not considered persuading Change to give up the plane. Although Naohua's arm had been retracted, this plane was just a space left behind and had nothing to do with Naohua. Their goal for coming here had been achieved, and they could completely give up this plane and leave. But how to say it? Not only Change cared about the creatures here, Naohua didn't say it, but she must have cared a little in her heart. After all, they were the lives it nurtured, just like Xia Guixuan cared about the descendants of the Blue Dragon God. So Naohua never said, "The arm is done, we can leave. It's dangerous if we don't leave." If she ran away, Change might not disobey, because she would have some grudges in her heart. Naohua also had grudges, and Xia Guixuan himself had grudges. Running away when a strong enemy came was when you were not confident in your own strength, and it was not what you should do at the current level. You think you are all sisters. What's more, Xia Guixuan had the idea of formally colliding with the other party as a prelude rehearsal. In fact, according to the strategic plans suggested by Long Gaiao, the process of searching for the remains of the brain flower is to constantly collide with the enemy from the side, so as to gradually penetrate into the core. This strategic significance is already taking effect, and many things are becoming clearer and clearer. Then continue. So he would signal Change to arrange a place for Long Gaiao Shang's Haoi to practice, so that everyone can break through as much as they can. In fact, Change and Athena can also break through, and the methods are relatively clear. Change is a collection of the intentions of many moon gods, and she is too clear to prove the way of Taiyin. In theory, she does not need any yang attribute, and she can continue to go to extremes. But extremes are contrary to the fundamental way of Taiji Liangai. Without yin and yang, she will never break through the barriers. So she needs the breath of the sun. This may be very difficult for others, and they have to find ways to collect it, but for Xia Guixuan, Athena, just need to eliminate the shadow in her heart and erase the flaws in her heart. This is for Xia Guixuan. Rabbit. Forget it for now, it doesn't seem reliable. What is your majesty thinking about? Change's curious question came to my ear. You can be distracted when you are pounding medicine? Xia Guixuan came back to his senses and whispered in his ear, "Don't wipe off the pounded medicine juice, drink it to upgrade." "Oh, don't twist it, I'm serious." In the middle of the night, Xia Guixuan, who just thought he had mastered the magic of the Sea King, was embarrassedly driven out of the Moon Palace. Oh no, this place is always the middle of the night. Xia Guixuan looked up at the sky. However, the medicine juice was swallowed after all, but after swallowing it, Change could no longer hold on to her face, and took out the magic belt and drove him out, regardless of whether he would be in the cold palace for another 1,000 years. After all, it was too fast. Change's mentality was not so into the play for a while. Originally, my plan to accompany her for a few days and then eat slowly was correct, but when I thought of the external enemy and the strength, I was too anxious. It seems that the magic skill is still lacking in maturity, and I can't master it at will. Xia Guixuan sighed and followed a breath all the way to the Taiyin Temple to see if there is a chance to take a bath together. The so-called Taiyin Temple is a palace complex built by change behind two huge osmanthus trees for cultivation. Between the two osmanthus trees is the moon spring. It is called a spring, but it is actually about the same size as a lake. The two osmanthus trees are even more bizarrely huge. If you look at them from a close distance, they can't be called trees at all. They are more terrifying than mountains. One is slightly larger and towering, and the other is smaller, but also has a diameter of 100 feet. It looks like a male and female tree that is dependent on each other. This is the pillar of heaven in this world. In other worlds, it may be regarded as Jianmu, the source of life, and the fulcrum of heaven and earth. In fact, the source is very clear, which is the evolution of the ring finger and little finger of the brain flower. The finger was retracted, and the trees were still there. But they had lost their spirits, and it would be difficult for them to generate new wonders in the future. However, the original energy was still there, and the brain flower was not recycled, so they were still lush and green, supporting this plane. Why did Xia Guixuan always refuse to admit that he was the supreme? It was because there was a brain flower around him. He always felt that his realm was not as good as that of the brain flower, even though the brain flower was getting more and more funny. Just as he was thinking this, he saw a Gundam standing not far in front, quietly looking at the two trees, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Xia Guixuan walked over in surprise. Weren't you taking a bath before? Why are you standing here in a daze? Gyota tilted his head to look at him, as if smiling. Sure enough, I was peeping at them taking a bath, Xia Guixuan said shamelessly. What's wrong with me looking at my own women? Yes, they are all your women. Gyota laughed sarcastically. So I won't stay here. No way. You are wrapped in a Gundam leather. Are you afraid of me looking at you? Gyota was silent for a moment, and continued to look up at the tree. It is because I am wrapped in a Gundam leather, so I want to take a bath like a human, but I find that I am deceiving myself. They are playing. I can't get involved, even if I try very hard to live a happy life. Xia Guixuan was slightly touched. It is said that change is lonely, but isn't a brain flower also? Go to hell and observe the eternal river leisurely. It's almost there, he said. In fact, we all know where your main body is. The thousand-edge fantasy world is there is no doubt about it. And they have broken through the heavens, and may have connected more parts. Killing them will solve most of the problems. Gundam still looked at the tree and did not respond. Xia Guixuan said, you don't think it's good? Gundam suddenly said, why don't you think that this universe is my body? Xia Guixuan's pupils shrank slightly. Brainflower no longer used the Gundam sound, and used his own mind to condense into a voice line. If that time comes, will it be you who prevents me from resurrecting? Xia Guixuan said nothing. Brainflower just looked at him steadily, no longer the Gundam electronic eye, but the eye of the dead realm that it rarely used, emerging from the Gundam cabin, looking a little scary and creepy. Xia Guixuan didn't care. He looked at the eye quietly for a while before saying, I promised, and I won't go back on my word. Even if you can destroy the world, I can create another one, Naoho said. Why bother? Xia Guixuan smiled. Because you are my friend. He pointed to the two trees, big and small, as if he knew what Naoho was thinking when he was looking at the trees before. If trees are like this, how can people bear it? P.S. Thanks to my brother Jin from Game 2 Hurt for joining the alliance. Sob. Chapter 515 Friends. In fact, Naoho is much more miserable than change. If you regard it as the way of heaven, it is normal. Countless universes, different planes, eternity, quietly watching birth and death, this is how it should be. If you regard it as a human, it is hard to imagine what kind of mood it is. The end of cultivation, whether it is heaven or man, has always been a typical proposition of different ways. Xia Guixuan once chose the former, and now he is heading for the latter. The conflict between the two is more embodied in Naoho. Its existence itself represents this typical contradiction, because in it, heaven is the evolution of human parts. It's the other way around. Not to mention the high-sounding things. Anyway, Naoho escaped and found that the atmosphere around Xia Guixuan was lively and harmonious, so it quickly degenerated and became more playful than anyone else. It's not a self-degradation, it's really comfortable. You can imagine what attitude others have when they get the Saint Demon brain, and what is Xia Guixuan's attitude? That's a feeling that I have never thought about. It was inevitable that Brainflower would become a more amusing person than Xia Guixuan. He was completely different from the gloomy and indifferent behind-the-scenes boss when eyes and brain constructed the world. It was rare to see it alone today. It put away its usual playful smile and had a bit more heaviness, but it also unexpectedly regained some of the temperament that should belong to a strong person, which had not been seen in Brainflower for a long time. So Xia Guixuan said, "We are friends." He knew Brainflower needed this sentence. After listening to Xia Guixuan's reply, the one eye blinked a few times, half-closed it, and retracted it into the Gundam cabin. The voice that was condensed with divine consciousness turned back into the electronic sound of Gundam again. "The illusion you used is wrong. Huan Wen felt that the tree was old. The illusion should be used flexibly. Huan Wen said the tree was old, and I say trees grow in pairs, and a single tree cannot make a forest. What's wrong with that?" Xia Guixuan casually sat cross-legged under the tree and said with a smile, "By the way, I haven't seen Huan Wen, have you?" Brainflower imitated him and sat cross-legged. "How could I have seen him? Who is as bored as you, hanging out in the mortal world every now and then? Not to mention my situation. Then how did you hear about some of my things? You know so much, you even know about me and Athena. Even many of my subordinates didn't know about this matter of capturing a woman for my sister to deal with." Brainflower smiled. "Not knowing the person doesn't mean you don't know the matter." In fact, Xia Guixuan also guessed something. Even if the Earth itself is not a component of Brainflower, there may be components nearby, maybe the famous planets or even the sun and the moon. It may not pay attention to small things, but it must know about big things like the fall of the kingdom of God. And those kingdoms of God are probably related to it, so it will pay more attention to them, such as who is still alive. I wonder what Athena would call Brainflower if you look at it this way? Xia Guixuan thought about it and smiled. "I went to the mortal world for a long time, and I missed a lot. I doubt that you can watch the replay from you, using me as a surveillance camera, almost," Brainflower said unhappily. "Why? Do you want to replay someone's sex scene from me? Am I solo end? You want to see the truth of history and see some people you have been friends with for a long time, isn't it okay? Which part do you want to see? Who are you friends with?" Xia Guixuan said. "For example, when I went down to the mortal world during the Three Kingdoms period, it was already quite late. Xiao and Liu Bei were both dead, and I didn't see them in person. It's a little regretful." Brainflower said. "Disc, what's there to see? Aren't you the thief Xiao?" Xia Guixuan. Brainflower pointed to Change's palace. "Xia Guixuan," Naoho said, "you didn't push her directly, that's a bit weird." Xia Guixuan said angrily, "Is this the image of me in your mind? I didn't eat Long Aiao's AOI either. If I hadn't caused trouble, would you have eaten her or not?" Xia Guixuan frowned. "Don't talk about things that didn't happen. You are the Supreme One, don't you think it's cheap to have such topics on your mind? You don't think it's cheap to do it, so why do I think it's cheap to say it? Besides, of course I have a reason to ask this topic. Don't tell me you can't see that heating change can upgrade her, and the effect is immediate," Naoho said contemptuously. "You are like a hungry ghost at ordinary times, but you still act like a gentleman when facing a powerful enemy," Xia Guixuan said with a straight face. "Why do you want to make yourself a cauldron? Wouldn't it be better to let things calm naturally? In terms of combat power, you can still be one level lower than hers. Then are you still thinking about letting Long Aiao's AOI take a bath to upgrade? Because I am not optimistic about Change's actual combat capability." Xia Guixuan looked up at the sky. The level of her ascension back then was enough to make a Kinzin like me afraid. The memory imprint is too deep, it's simply. Besides, look at the previous battle, she was almost in a daze in the second half. Not to mention temporary exhaustion, an experienced warrior can pose a fatal threat to the opponent even if he is dying, Naoho said contemptuously. "She talks sweet words in the room, and when she comes out, this woman is not good enough." "Who said she is not good enough?" Xia Guixuan said slowly. "She is responsible and beautiful, that's enough." Naoho laughed dumbly. After a long pause, he said, "You gave up attacking them while they were taking a bath just to chat with me about these meaningless things. Did it work?" "Yes, it really made me feel much more comfortable." "That's fine," Naoho said. "Is this a friend? Is this a friend?" Xia Guixuan said. "Just tell me if you have anything to say. There's no point in keeping it to yourself. You're standing outside looking at the trees, besides because you're in a weird mood because of Gundam taking a bath. I'm afraid a large part of it is because you're worried about the upcoming war. You're still trying to trick me into telling me my real name." Naoho sighed. "It's not that I won't tell you, Although I'm not trying to trick you with this, but this also reminds me that the other party is about to attack us, and our cooperation has been exposed. What's the point of hiding your real name? Naoho thought absent-mindedly, and suddenly laughed. You also have too strong a sense of being the protagonist. Don't you think that at our level, once we attract attention, we will face an all-out kill? Xia Guixuan said curiously. Are we not qualified? Especially in your case, theoretically, this is the most important thing they have done. Where can they find something more noble than yours? You are qualified, but there are more than just you and me. Things like this can only be said to be one of, not the only one. Others have a lot of things to do. Besides, you should know that there is more than one supreme in the 3,000 worlds. There are some things that they are also wary of and restrained from doing, so they can't do whatever they want. Xia Guixuan nodded slightly. Indeed, he had overestimated the situation of Naoho. If this was really the only major thing the other party was operating, how could no one be watching and let Naoho play on his own? That is to say, the other party has done quite a lot. As if seeing what he was thinking, Naoho said, suppose that humans dismantle the Gundam, will they focus all their energy on whether the Gundam will resurrect itself? Even if they know that the Gundam is doing so, they will just pay attention, and it will not be a level 1 combat readiness. Good analogy, I see. And if humans find out that a very powerful scientist who escaped from the country before has cooperated with this Gundam, then the alarm level will rise sharply. This is what I said before, that the nature of our cooperation will be different. You and I may not be the most important separately, but it will be different after we are together. But even so, it still will not be a level 1 combat readiness, roughly the level of mobilizing the Special Operations Department. Xia Guixuan grinned. Although it feels like everyone's prestige has been lost, it is indeed easier to use it as a metaphor to make things clear. Then there is no prestige, continue, and you know, I can be sensed when I talk about my real name. They haven't sensed it yet, which means I haven't told you my real name. This will give them a judgment. Our cooperation is very limited, and we are in a state of mutual suspicion, which is more in line with the relationship we should have in general. Naoho said leisurely, I bet that no matter who it is, no one would have thought that the word used between you and me would be friends. Friends are much closer than collaborators, not to mention any cooperation with mutual suspicion. In fact, let alone other people, even Naoho herself had never thought that Xia Guixuan would use this word to define their relationship, and was indeed doing so. Xia Guixuan thought about it and suddenly laughed. If there is an enemy coming this time, we can deepen the other party's misjudgment by the way, which will be beneficial. You are quite sinister, Kang Kang. The chant ended. Long Yao and the others finished their bath and were getting dressed when they saw a Gundam falling from the sky. It landed in the water with a bang, bubbling. P.S. I fell asleep again yesterday, woo woo woo. Anyway, there was no chapter to say yesterday, so it might as well be put today. I wonder if there will be any today. Chapter 516, Aho brand digestive tablets. Xia Guixuan arrived at the Taiyan temple with a still sour look on his face. In order to chat with a stinky brain flower, he really gave up the opportunity to raid everyone's bath. When he came over, Rabbit and Athena had already run away. Originally, staying here to take a bath together was to leave space for him and change to accomplish good things. Now that it's done, it's not right for them to stay here. Maybe the servant over there is in a state of weakness, and there must be a servant. Long Yao Shang's AOI has also addressed neatly and is even experiencing cultivation. Change didn't brag before. The quality of the natural materials and treasures here is extremely high. It has exceeded the scope of the brain flower's arm itself and has bred its own connotation. Such a rich and pure Taiyan moonlight is hard to see in other planes. And the moon spring, Zuanang Gimu, and various exotic flowers and plants each have different elemental combinations and play different medicinal purposes. These things are priceless treasures for any cultivator. No matter what kind of cultivation, they are beneficial. Collecting them to make pills will be more meaningful. Of course, bathing in the moon spring soaked with osmanthus and moonflame grass also has extraordinary effects. Long Yao is already taking, so the effect is not obvious, but in taking, it is very difficult to improve some gains. For Shang's AOI, who is at the peak of Wuxiang and is preparing to try to break through taking, the effect is very significant, especially this attribute is actually quite compatible with her, ZAOI. This is Yi. Although it is definitely unrealistic to expect a direct breakthrough, how can taking be so easy? But it does not prevent Shang Xiaoi from getting a very suitable understanding of the avenue, consolidating the previous two fast improvement, and laying a good foundation for breaking through the threshold in the future. For a while, the hall was quite quiet, and no one paid attention to Xia Guixuan when he entered the door. The Gundam that had just been beaten was repairing the back wing that was kicked and broken, and felt distressed. Xia Guixuan was also angry and amused when he saw its stinky appearance. Although the stinky brain flower always makes trouble, Xia Guixuan actually thinks it is quite fun, and it is also a very fresh experience for him. It doesn't refer to assembly or Gundam, it refers to status. Because the people around him since he came out of seclusion are either ethnic groups or subordinates, or even captives, etc., including the recent Henge trio, all of whom cannot escape similar attributes. He has always looked down on him from a high position. Even if his performance is already very casual and funny, it can't affect the essence. People around him are relatively weak and obedient to him, regardless of gender. It's the same with Hunan Novimea, and even the human side is the same. Ling Xiaonan, even Yu Giheng, knows that he has many problems, but he turns a blind eye and doesn't say much. The one who jumps the most is Long Gaiao. She takes advantage of the identity of the mother-in-law and has an excuse to be a little arrogant. But it's just a little bit. In fact, Long Gaiao is a combination of ethnic groups, captives, and subordinates. In terms of confidence, she is weaker than others. But she is smart. She knows that Xia Guixuan prefers others to jump a little bit, not to kneel down with a glare, because it's too boring. So Long Gaiao is the most upright. And Xia Guixuan also likes to flirt with her the most. Naohe is different. In terms of cultivation, status and knowledge, it is actually higher than Xia Guixuan. It is the only one who dares to challenge Xia Guixuan's majesty. It doesn't matter if Xia Guixuan shouts Zhuan or Kang Kang. It is also the one who cannot be ordered and can only be discussed with. This is very rare in the long years after Xia Guixuan's successful cultivation. Xia Guixuan is very happy to have such a friend, regardless of gender. Of course, it is better to be a woman. With so many women around him, it is always not so convenient for men. Naohe is simply perfect. Just for such a perfect attribute, Xia Guixuan is also happy to help it. I don't know if it is considered as a slut. It is difficult for people who have not experienced the feeling of being in a high position for a long time to understand Xia Guixuan's mood. This means that what he said to Naohe is sincere. Naohe is at such a level that sincerity and falsehood can be distinguished at a glance, and there is no need to test or doubt. So the mood that was a little gloomy is very good at the moment. Glancing at Xia Guixuan, who was standing there with a gloomy face and no one paying attention to him, Gundam casually inserted the wing panel crookedly, turned around and smiled. Do you regret that you could have come earlier and jumped into the bathing pool of four beauties, but you ended up chatting with a Gundam for a long time, and now it's deserted? Xia Guixuan said with a straight face. It's just bathing with a group of women. It's no big deal. Did you play this when you were a tyrant? I'm not saying I didn't. Don't talk nonsense, Tisk. The barbarity at that time. Who would believe you if you said you didn't? There should be all kinds of things in the open air. The man you are talking about may be called Zeus. Speaking of Zeus, Gundam seemed to remember something. His eyes flashed, and he lowered his voice and said, Hey, if you feel lonely and alone, you can go and catch Athena to accompany you. She must be very honest. You can do whatever you want to her. Xia Guixuan cupped his hands and leaned close to it, responding in a low voice, You haven't done this kind of thing for a long time. Isn't it not good for your current image, and change? You have your reasons. Athena is in a very bad state now. She seems to maintain the state of her early years, but her actual state of mind is not clear at all, and her combat power is also worrying. Only you can comfort her and restore her to her previous appearance as a female warrior. You seem to like playing a female warrior too, so with your tone, is this the comfort I understand? Yeah, spread out, release. Xia Guixuan slapped Gundam on the head. Rogue. Gundam hugged his head and glared at him. Good intentions are not rewarded. Logically, I should stop it. Forget it. With your way of comforting, it will only get worse, right? Xia Guixuan didn't care what he had in the half sentence, and said to himself, seriously speaking, I have actually comforted her outside the temple before. Judging from her reaction, it is somewhat useful. Of course, this matter cannot be resolved in a few words. As I understand it, it takes time to get along with each other and slowly resolve the psychological shadow. If you want it faster, you go. Gundam was stunned. Xia Guixuan continued, I know your advice is useful, Gyota scratched his head. It turned out that he knew what the hidden half-sentence was. Please do me a favor, Ahua, you are such a gentleman. I have no fun watching you, it's the time to have fun. People are about to come and beat us, okay, since you are so sincere. Gyota turned his head and glanced at Long Yao and Shang Zhaoi who were meditating with their eyes closed, and smiled. I'll help you one more by the way, Xia Guixuan asked curiously. What? Gyota pointed at Long Yao and Shang Zhaoi. Although the things they absorb in the bath are the top creations of self-evolution, they still come from me after all. I can stimulate their absorption and perception, saving the long-term digestion process. Don't worry, there will be no risk of forcing things. It's almost the same as eating hawthorn slices to aid digestion. Xia Guixuan hesitated and said, this is very laborious, right? It's easier said than done. Gyota patted him on the shoulder. Since you are my friend. As he spoke, a white jade-like hand stretched out from the cabin, and the fingers were as beautiful as flowers, and flicked lightly. 2 rays of light fell into the body of the dim Shang Zhaoi. Gyota withdrew his hand and went out leisurely. I'm going to see Athena, you play by yourself. Xia Guixuan watched Gyota swaying away, and always felt that what it said was a bit strange. Just as he was in doubt, he heard Shang Zhaoi's and opened his eyes with a red face. Father God, you? Xia Guixuan hurried over. What's the situation? Shang Zhaoi gritted his teeth and angrily. Even if you didn't succeed with change, you can't, at least you shouldn't. Xia Guixuan asked curiously. What are you talking about? I said. I thought Father God had some shame, but he actually fell to using aphrodisiacs. Is this called showing his true colors? Xia Guixuan was dumbfounded. Is this the so-called Ahua brand stomach strengthening and digestion promoting tablets? P.S. The 3rd update is still not out. I'll do it tomorrow. I've been down these 2 days. Chapter 517. After supporting Shang Zhaoi and slightly probing her internal state, Xia Guixuan understood what was going on. To put it bluntly, the long-term digestion of Taiyin Qi turned into a short-term burst. Ahua controlled it very well, and it did not cause energy to run away or force growth, and it was harmless to the human body. However, this short-term burst of breath itself is problematic, because this is Taiyin. Isn't the Taiyin burst a desire for Yang Qi to reconcile? The reflection in women's feelings is. This is not an aphrodisiac, but the effect is more powerful, because this is the essence of the combination of yin and yang in the universe. Taking may be able to dissolve it by itself, but Wuxiang is obviously not capable of this. So although Long Yao's face was also flushed with heat, she remained in a state of meditation, but Shang Zhaoi woke up. Seeing that only Xia Guixuan was standing there, she thought that Xia Guixuan had drugged her. Shang Zhaoi complained, but she didn't resist. When Xia Guixuan helped her over, she lowered her head and murmured, God of color. Are you so hungry? Xia Guixuan looked at her blurred eyes with a smile, and of course he would not push her away. The pure yang breath in her body slowly passed in. It was just a breath, but the feeling was very exaggerated. It didn't affect her thinking at first, but now her mind was blank, and she was so dizzy that she didn't even know where she was. In fact, Xia Guixuan didn't have any thoughts at the moment. But it was rare to see Shang Zhaoi's charming posture, and her heart was also hot. She thought to herself that if Ahua hadn't caused trouble along the way, Zhaoi would have been willing to do it, and it wasn't that she took advantage of someone's misfortune. So, Ahua's words about persuading Athena did not go on, but Shang Zhaoi was persuaded clearly. Father God, Shang Zhaoi said vaguely, Father God, I like you so much. Xia Guixuan was stunned, and his hand paused. Like? He really didn't expect to hear such words from Shang Zhaoi. Isn't it worship and submission? In fact, sometimes, there is no clear watershed between a woman's worship and submission to a man in her love and admiration. Strong ability and lofty status can arouse admiration in itself. Especially when they are obviously in a relationship of serving the gods, they are willing to have everything for him. When he is willing to let you ride him casually, it is unclear whether it is worship or admiration. If he had asked her to sleep with him casually in the early days, it might not have evolved like this, knowing in his heart that he was just sleeping with her. But Xia Guixuan not only did not do that, but respected her more and more. Not only did he not use her as a mount, but he also entrusted her with important tasks, and was simply his right-hand man. Later, she started to feel a little embarrassed when riding, and her attitude became more and more gentle and she was able to talk. During this journey of companionship, with a little ambiguity, hugging and cuddling, Shang Xiaoai's intention to serve the gods became less and less, and he felt more and more that he really liked to be with him. Even every smile and every encouragement would touch his heartstrings. But Shang Xiaoai was relatively introverted and serious, and he would not easily express this kind of emotional attitude, but just hide it in his heart. The more he hid it, the more turbulent it would be. Xia Guixuan never thought that when an introverted person like Shang Xiaoai could not help but stab change and wanted to fight, it was really uncontrollable jealousy, so sour, even if she didn't express it a few times, it was actually more serious than Long Yao, who officially started fighting. Ahua was a bystander. She understood better than Xia Guixuan. If she came back from change with tenderness and sweetness, and then talked to Shang Xiaoai seriously about cultivation, Shang Xiaoai would probably be poisoned by lemons in his heart. She was lonely in the Moon Palace and pitiful. I am just a horse who is only worthy of talking about work, right? It would be better to give them a push and let them linger for a while, and that would be it. Shang Xiaoai felt that Father God deliberately drugged her in order to get her. Although he complained, he might be a little happy in his heart. Ahua is a true friend. Xia Guixuan's mind was spinning, and he slowly figured out the logic. It was as if there were waves in his heart, soft and gentle. Sure enough, Shang Xiaoai said vaguely, Actually, if you want, just say it. Why bother to drug her? Xia Guixuan understood it this time. Only a fool would deny it, so he said, I thought my Xiaoai was reserved and didn't want to. Shang Xiaoai said softly, just say it. I might really be unhappy, because you didn't succeed with her, so we are easy to bully, but in the end, she will agree. It's better to say some sweet words, and don't use drugs, okay? Actually, I succeeded there. It's not what you think, Xia Guixuan whispered in his ear, but I still want to compare. How does my horse compare to her? If ordinary people said this, it would be extremely scumbag, but for this couple, Shang Xiaoai was very happy. Am I whiter than her? Don't think that the silver saddle reflects the white horse. Shang Xiaoai's skin is like white jade, and from this point of view alone, perhaps only Yuta can compete for the top spot. Shang Xiaoai and Yao Wu are closer and more resilient. Just coming from change, it is a different feeling to come to Shang Xiaoai's side. Spring orchids and autumn chrysanthemums are each good at their own things, and neither is better than the other. Xia Guixuan can't let go. Shang Xiaoai's eyes became more and more blurred, and he said softly, maybe not as delicate as change, she has a unique style. Then, Shang Xiaoai subconsciously glanced at Long Yao. Compare with her, huh? Xia Guixuan didn't know if Long Yao could hear him, and said with a stiff face, I haven't tried with her, forget it. Her body was actually made by the Father God, and it must be perfect in the Father God's heart. I won't compare with her, Shang Xiaoai murmured, but I want to be better than her first. It seems that you have suffered enough small grievances from your friendship with the fox and the horse along the way, and it all burst out here. Xia Guixuan felt earlier that there was no need to be so anxious, and it was not a natural process, but now he felt that the process had already been completed and was about to overflow. Because Xiaoai obviously had the intention of taking advantage of the topic, she was completely sober, not confused by the effect of the drug. At this time, all kinds of thoughts should be completely abandoned, so as not to disappoint the beauty. It was unexpected that change was not completely done, but Xiaoai was. If Ahua hadn't pushed him, who knew if he would have gotten to the right point? Long Yao opened his eyes angrily. He was awake too. He couldn't see her, and he didn't dare to probe with his mind. He could only seize Xiaoai's arm from the edge of the pillar, wrapped around his neck. Chapter 518, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Unexpected, not to mention Long Yao, even Xia Guixuan and Shang Xiaoai, the two parties involved, did not think it would happen more than 10 minutes ago. Not to mention change. Before, they were still affectionate under the moon, but they turned around and went on horseback. Even if change was told by divination, she could not predict such a development. So when she came to entertain guests with her rabbit, she was stunned when she heard the voice in the palace. From Xia Guixuan's perspective, it was night, and the moonlight was lingering anyway, which was the time to do such things. Change had been in this plane for a long time and of course knew very well that if it was converted according to normal time, it should have been early in the morning, and her butt was already exposed to the sun. She felt that after last night, she was more established as the hostess, and she should be more generous and not quarrel with the vixen. In addition, Athena went out with a Gundam, and no one knew where she was going, so Change came to greet the guests with a little rabbit in her arms. As a result, the vixen was showing off. "This is my home. You live in my palace, bathe in my spring water, and use my man? Are you human?" Oh, they weren't. No. That voice sounded like the quiet Xiaoru. According to my imagination, wasn't it that fox who would be so coquettish in the past? Sure enough, the silent ones are the most terrifying. No, you just took the medicine from me, how come you do it again? Change was confused. Sure enough, it was the former tyrant who was so demanding. Is he not satisfied? I drove him out myself, is he going to be sent to the cold palace again? Change stood in the night wind holding the rabbit, not knowing whether she should go in. To be honest, I didn't think Xia Guixuan was wrong. His Majesty originally brought these two concubines with him, it would be strange if he didn't do anything. Instead, I felt a little uneasy, wondering if he would think that I was not obedient enough, so he deliberately showed that I was not without women to serve me. Change thought about her own emotions and found herself quite funny. Yesterday, the sisters attacked him and threw all kinds of powerful moves at his head. After he hugged her and talked to her a few times, she actually began to worry about losing favor. Really? Was his performance too perfect last night, perfectly in line with her dream of a man beside her? This dream did not originally include loyalty to her. He is the emperor. If there is a queen, it should be Sister Xiao Simings. But I am still very jealous, and all this hostility is directed at those two women. Rabbit was also dumbfounded. Master, that centaur girl looks like she should be very good at fighting, with abdominal muscles on her waist. Why does it sound so tragic? I don't know. Change was in a mess in the wind, thinking to herself that the thing was very big. Is it so scary? Everyone has watched a lot of dramas out of boredom, but Change, who thinks traditionally, has never seen the legendary thing called AV, and Rabbit has not seen it either. So much so that their knowledge comes from watching pornographic pictures, the silent version. It sounds like that horse is so miserable, and it's even out of breath but not in. Is this the attack power of the supreme power? Change was very glad that she was just pounding medicine before. Otherwise she would have been killed with her weak body. The rabbit also felt that a little rabbit like him would not be skewered. How could he do this? No, master, please be gentle, I'm almost flattened by your hug. Oh. Change quickly relaxed her tense body and whispered, I didn't mean to do that, I'm stronger. How did you get stronger? The rabbit asked curiously. Didn't you tell me that he didn't favor you? No. Change stammered. Feed me some medicine. It says that yin cannot grow alone, and my strength will get better after yin is extreme and yang is born. I don't feel that my energy limit has changed, but my strength is indeed stronger, the rabbit said. Such a good medicine, give me some. Change looked at it sympathetically for a long time. I'm afraid that by the time comes, you won't be able to not eat it. It's your own fault, rabbit, forget it. Change whispered, go get some fruit and osmanthus wine, they should be getting better soon. The rabbit thought that this sounded like they were dying rather than getting better. Even if they were getting better, you actually invited them to have a post-mortem drink. Are you really ready to compete for favor? The master has grown up, not a moth that sighed at the moon. But when women compete, men win. Rabbit sighed and walked away with his hands in his pockets. It was indeed over inside. I never liked the supine position of horses, thinking that standing was the most suitable for me, but in the end I found out that I was wrong. Because I couldn't stand it all. It seems that I have to get used to lying on my back or prone in the future. Well, I still like this position. It's that kind of position that makes me subconsciously think of the bridle and reins. Forget it. If he is interested, it's okay to play with him next time. Anyway, I actually feel a little eager. Since I knew that my apprentice played with him like this, my throat has been a little dry. That's his horse, bound for life. When turning these thoughts, I also felt like laughing. How did it become like this? I was thinking about these things. Looking back at what I said when the incident happened, Xiang's cheeks were still hot. It was indeed in a sober state, but I indulged in words that I would never say normally just because of the desire of my body. That feeling of being both sober and confused, that shameful words of I like you and I'll give you everything, even more shameful than the gentle love itself. If he said that, he would still pretend to be a gentleman. I didn't even know if he had the face to stay by his side. Fortunately, he was not stupid. This hearty release, Shang Xiaoai almost paralyzed, but he was very satisfied. He was combined with him without any obstacles, not the helpless sleeping with him that he had imagined, but the tenderness after the confession. Shang Xiaoai felt that the happiness index at this time even exceeded the dream of her girlhood. When she was a girl, she just wanted to find a husband who could revitalize the tribe, and it would be best to fight for the father god. Is this the same level of dream as falling in love with a father god? The most enjoyable thing is to let you say that I am too deep to control it in front of Long Gaiao. Just listen over there. Oh, by the way, change is also outside. We went thousands of miles to help. But we saw the father god and you fall in love, and now it's not me who should go first? It's amazing to be beautiful. Shang Xiaoai wondered if he was broken. From his body to his mind, he had fallen so thoroughly, he didn't even try hard. Well, including killing himself now, he didn't seem to have tried hard. He was unworthy of being a human. He even helped put on the clothes, he was so gentle. Shang Xiaoai's eyes melted. Just when the clothes were almost put on, a pretty face appeared in front of him. Hey, isn't this our heroic god of wars Xiaoai? I haven't seen you for an hour or two, you are so. Shang Xiaoai almost had to focus to recognize that it was Long Gaiao's face. She blinked, stretched out her hand to press Long Gaiao's pretty face and put it aside, looking at Xia Guixuan tenderly. Father God, are you tired? I'll get you a glass of water. Long Gaiao, we should have formed an alliance to deal with change, okay? You crossed the river on a white horse, stabbed me in the back so confidently, and you turned around to make me angry? Xia Guixuan coughed dryly, got up and put on his clothes. It seems that Shang Xiaoai has no strength. If he had the strength to get up, he would definitely show off his homely feeling of putting a coat on his lover with affection in front of Long Gaiao. But now he has no choice but to talk. The water is coming. There was a knock on the door outside, and Change's voice came leisurely. Can I, the host, come in? Here it comes. This tune, Long Gaiao became energetic. Behind the osmanthus tree in the distance, Gundam was talking to Athena, and suddenly stopped talking in the middle of the conversation, and his electronic eyes kept flashing. Athena said curiously, you? Gundam waved his hand handsomely. Wait, no matter how big the matter is, I will talk about it after I have fun. Chapter 519, Hermaphrodite and the Field of Shame. Athena simply couldn't understand how the man in her mind became like this. Would a person become stupid if he put on a Gundam shell? Of course, she couldn't understand how the East Emperor Xia Guixuan, who once frightened her beyond measure, became the Sea King now. If he was so lustful back then, she would have been eaten up 10,000 times. When did she wait until today to meet? These 1,000 years seemed like a blackout. I didn't know what I was doing, nor what happened to them. It was like waking up from a dream, and the world was different from what I knew. Including Change, who was different after just one night. Look at what they are doing over there now. Such a cold and solemn Taiyin temple, where Change practiced in seclusion, now inexplicably turned into a recliner, and Xia Guixuan was leaning on the chair to eat fruit. The fruit was brought by Rabbit. The little maid with lowered eyebrows and eyes was still secretly glancing at Shang Xiaoai from the corner of her eyes. Shang Xiaoai's clothes were messy and he didn't put them in order. He stood lazily behind Xia Guixuan and massaged his shoulders. In fact, Shang Xiaoai originally wanted to lean on Xia Guixuan's arms, steal all the show from Long Gaiao, and do what a vixen should do. But it was not in line with her temperament after all, and it was hard for her to do it with Change present. She still felt that she was more suitable to stand behind Xia Guixuan and be a good housekeeper. It would be better if there was another Mozu standing next to her, so that the master and apprentice would be very symmetrical. No matter how she thought she was still a straight-backed female warrior and priestess, in the eyes of others, she was lazy at the moment. Her white priest robe with silver edges was loose, revealing a large area of white on her shoulders and chest, and she was too lazy to cover it, and she gently smiled and rubbed the man's shoulders. The beautiful style from a warrior to a young woman made Long Gaiao's buttocks a little restless. Xiaoai, who had been together for thousands of years, always thought he was very honest, but he didn't expect him to be so seductive. No wonder the word Sao has a horse character next to it, with a fork on the top and a big insect below. This is not a word, but a record of the scene last night. Long Gaiao was wondering if Kangji, who invented Chinese characters, also had a horse like that. Change's thinking was not so outrageous. Instead, she envied Shang Xiaoai. She felt very beautiful and feminine, but not glamorous, like a blooming crab apple. In comparison, she was too immature and too restrained. No wonder His Majesty liked that. Change felt sour in her heart. She sat next to Xia Guixuan with a calm face and whispered, "Your Majesty, did you have a comfortable stay last night?" Very good, very good." Xia Guixuan was a little alert, not knowing how the Shura field would be torn this time. But he was no longer afraid, because he realized that the Shura field was only embarrassing, and the final result was often profitable, as long as it was guided well. Although this was a test of skill and it was very likely to fail. But none of the women around him were palace fighting kings. The rookie Change almost failed to tear Long Yao apart in a 3-on-1 fight. Then Change said apologetically, "There have been few people in the Moon Palace, so I can't serve my two sisters. Don't blame me for being negligent." Fortunately, His Majesty brought his own maids. Shang's Haoi stopped. "Who is the maid?" "You are the mistress?" Xia Guixuan, who was going to sit on the mountain and watch the tiger fight, was unable to stay out of the matter in the first sentence, and hurriedly said, "You may have misunderstood. Xiaoi is my high priest, who has always worked hard and made great contributions. He is my right-hand man, not a maid." Shang's Haoi smiled, stretched out his hand to weigh a fruit and fed it to Xia Guixuan, and continued to massage his shoulders. Sure enough, it was different after that, and he knew that he was not the kind of person who would take it all and not admit it. Change bowed and said, "I am sorry for my words. Thank you for your hard work." "My voice is hoarse." Xia Guixuan, Shang's Haoi, "What kind of hard work are you thanking me for? And how come my sister has already confirmed it?" Xia Guixuan didn't know how to respond to this question, so he could only eat his fruit in silence. Shang's Haoi looked at Long Yao for help, regretting that she had offended Long Yao just now. She was really not good at speaking in this aspect. How could she tear the enemy apart without Long Yao's help? Long Yao sent a message, "Do you know you are in the wrong?" Shang's Haoi begged for mercy, "I know I am in the wrong. Call me sister, sister, sister. You are my sister. I used to listen to you so much." Long Yao snorted, thought about it and decided to forget it. It didn't matter what her relationship with his Haoi was, she might as well help her tear down the external enemy first. She sighed softly, "Xiaoi, you seem to be about to break through. Why are you still standing here playing?" Shang's Haoi hurriedly said, "No hurry, I have to go into seclusion later." Long Yao said, "Is it the result of the Taiyin Qi plus the sun's breath?" Shang's Haoi didn't know why she was talking about this, so he had to say honestly, "Yes." Long Yao said, "Hey, you said, people who practice Taiyin, plus the sun's Qi, this practice is called Yin Yang Qi? Is that person called Yin Yang Ren? It sounds so powerful." "Xiaoi, have you learned it?" Shang's Haoi almost couldn't help laughing. "No, I'm not practicing Taiyin." Even Xia Guixuan covered his mouth and told himself not to laugh. If he laughed, he would die, and Change would be gone. Change's pretty face turned pale and blue, thinking to herself that what I said just now was Yin Yang Qi, and what you said is even worse. Who is the Yin Yang Ren? But Change has one advantage. The long loneliness makes her very calm and will not be overwhelmed. She knew very well why she came here. She was afraid that Xia Guixuan would be angry for kicking him out last night, and she was afraid that she would fall out of favor after Shang's Haoi got there first. She came in to greet him in this situation. In essence, she was not here to quarrel, but to express to Xia Guixuan with the attitude of a hostess, "I am still yours." The sarcasm was just because of jealousy. It was subconscious. In fact, what's the point of quarreling? What's the point of winning the quarrel? Would it make Xia Guixuan think that she is jealous and looks down on her? It's unnecessary. There is a more direct way to piss off that dead fox. A smile appeared on her face. She was originally just sitting next to Xia Guixuan's chair, but now she leaned over softly and said softly, "Sister Long Yao, you are too kind. I still lack a lot of yang energy. I wonder if His Majesty is willing to help balance it a little bit." Long Yao was dumbfounded. "Hey, I'm quarreling, not assisting you." He looked at Shang's Haoi carefully, but Shang's Haoi showed no sign of loyalty. He lowered his head to look at Change, and then looked at Xia Guixuan's hand that had subconsciously wrapped around her waist, and smiled slightly. "This is what Father God wants, right? Father God wants this kind of competition so that he can take advantage. Otherwise, Change is of a calm nature, and the relationship between them is distant, so how can it progress so quickly?" The fact that he was able to spend so much time in her room last night was essentially due to the fact that Long Yao had fought so hard before. Shang's Haoi, who had already taken the lead, was now sitting on the Diaoyute, and on the contrary, he had a kind of magnanimity of looking at the later ones. He secretly thought that this woman was not easy. With such a calm nature, she was willing to get into his arms in public. For her, it was estimated that her heart was about to jump out. It's better not to bully her. Long Yao was so smart that she saw Shang's Haoi's expression, and she knew what he meant after a little thought, and sighed. After all, they were all kind people. Seeing that Change was sympathetic, how could they fight? Whatever. I am the one who suffered the most. Xiaoi got there first and still acted generous. What about me? Change leaned on Xia Guixuan's arms. She didn't see anyone say anything for a long time. She stole a glance and saw Shang's Haoi took the initiative to say, Father God, I should go into seclusion. Xia Guixuan nodded. Go. Shang's Haoi pulled Long Yao up, and the two walked out of the temple side by side. Long Yu curled her lips and whispered, You are pretending to be generous, and you stabbed me in the back again. Shang's Haoi sighed. Forget it, he is a poor man. You think so too. I think so, but I wonder why I lost so badly. Long Yu pinched Shang's Haoi's waist meat. You are a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Now you are going to eat secretly. Shang's Haoi smiled apologetically. Sister, I will help you with assists next time. Who wants you to assist? I just want to hang him. Long Yu shook her long hair proudly, and walked away with a hum. Next time, just agree to one condition of mine. Okay sister, no problem sister. The two of them put their arms around each other's shoulders and went far away in an instant. Gundam sighed with regret in the distance. It's not intense, everyone understands Kong Rong giving up his pairs, it's boring to watch. P.S. I said there would be 3 updates today, but I didn't get it out before 12 o'clock. It's late but it's here. Going to bed, continue in the afternoon. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520, Sorrow first, joy later. Seeing the two people's backs going away, Change sighed softly, and the desire to fight in her heart was also reduced a lot. She saw the kindness of these two people and didn't want to embarrass her too much. Otherwise, the fox would also lie on Xia Guixuan's other shoulder, and this would not end. How could His Majesty be so lucky, surrounded by such kind-hearted women, and each one is more beautiful than the other? You? Xia Guixuan's voice came to her ears. Change raised her head and saw Xia Guixuan scratching her nose with a smile. Actually, you don't need to compete with anyone. I said, you are the unique moon, Change said angrily. It's not you who deliberately led the scene to become like this. Who wants to compete? Because if I don't guide you, the moon will always be far away. How can I let you take the initiative to lean into my arms so quickly? Xia Guixuan did not hide the truth. As he spoke, he guided her hand to touch his heart. Although I use tricks, my heart is not empty. You also touch it. Rabbit was amazed at the side. With this level, I still designed a script for him. It's really overestimating my ability. Change was weak in his arms, and drew circles on his chest gently. You can bully me, from the past to now. Then, Xia Guixuan leaned over and kissed her. Fairy Change, are you going to let this bad guy bully you? Change's circles turned into pushing his chest, but she had no strength at all. She was kissed firmly, trying to resist. She could feel her clothes slipping down. She resisted before, but this time she was no longer able to struggle. The rabbit popped out and changed its shape in his hands. She would never say give me some time again. The little girl who turned into a real rabbit stood by and held the fruit in her hands, stunned. Did you forget that there was a rabbit next to you? You play with a rabbit like this in front of me? I'm still young. The rabbit dropped the fruit and covered her eyes. What kind of Shura field is this? This is clearly a Zeulo field, okay. It's not good to watch. Gundam flipped the table. Talk about us. Athena sighed. It's good that it's not good to watch. I thought you were going to continue watching the movie. What's so good about it? But then he heard Naoho say, it's because these two will never really get to that step, so it's not good to watch. Athena, Naoho said, Xia Guixuan also has a morbid aesthetic rhythm for this kind of thing. He just slept with his horse, How could he do another one so soon? We bet that he will continue to cultivate his mood. It is also equivalent to continuing to express his attitude to change that he is not doing it for food, but for company. Then change will be more moved and trustful, and she will be more and more stuck in the mud. She will become more and more skilled at taking the initiative, and she will become more and more harmonious with Long Yu's Aoi. Athena, what, you don't believe my analysis? Let's bet. No. Athena stroked her forehead. Why are you so interested in this? I have no interest in how Dong Huang deals with women. Huh? Naoho's enthusiasm faded a lot. That's right, you are not his woman. Athena continued to stroke her forehead. It's totally not that kind of relationship. Great. Can we be normal? Oh, by the way, what is our business? You said to help me untie the knot in my heart. Oh, yes. Gundam glanced at her. Are you afraid of Xia Guixuan? Yes, yes. An irresistible spiritual shackle that cannot be broken for thousands of years. Even if he had been very kind and encouraging to you outside the temple before, it was useless. That's what you said. What kind of evil did this kid do to you in the first place? Athena lowered her head and said nothing. Brain said, in fact, I don't know what you are afraid of. Will he kill you? He didn't kill you back then, and now you have expressed your submission. Why would he kill you for no reason? Athena was stunned. Unless I commit an unforgivable capital crime again, he won't kill me. Then what are you afraid of? Gundam made a gesture of grabbing with both hands. Eat you. Athena blushed. Brain snorted. So he will give you to his subordinates to play with? His cleanliness. Believe it or not, if I were a man, he would kick me away 100,000 light years. Athena was a little amused by what he said. Yes, so it won't happen, right? Yeah. Gundam spread his hands. Then what on earth are you afraid of? Athena lowered her head and said, I don't know, I'm just naturally afraid of him, as if I was cast under some kind of fear spell. Logically, I should hate him and want revenge, but, let alone revenge, I tremble when I point my spear at him. Then I have a good and simple idea. Athena is looking forward to it. She also wants to get rid of her current mental state. How can she be a goddess of war and wisdom now? It's no problem to say that she is a quail. Her actual combat ability is dragged down by this state of mind, getting worse and worse, even worse than Change, who has hardly fought in actual combat. The person in front of her really has an extraordinary status in her heart. He has magical powers that can do everything. He can get it done with just a finger. But then he heard Gundam say, don't point your spear at him, let him point his spear at you. Athena, you are afraid of him, so you are so timid. Why don't you take the initiative to do that with him? Anyway, you think it is normal to do that with him. Then compete with him in bed. If you win, you can get rid of your inner demons, and by the way, you can get revenge. It's killing two birds with one stone. Athena, see, isn't it very simple? Gundam put his hands on his hips. I admire myself more and more. I can think of such a good idea. Athena couldn't bear it anymore. She wanted to kick him out, but she didn't dare. She had to leave in anger. If Xia Guixuan knew that this brain was trying to comfort Athena like this, I wonder if he would get angry and have a cerebral hemorrhage. But he is very congested now. Sitting in the Taiyan temple, playing the Supreme Taiyan Star Lord, Emperor Zun, and Moon Goddess in this world, seeing her flattering, thinking about the countless people in the lower world who are worshipping, it's simply amazing. Then think about her ex-husband who is far away in an unknown place. The thief is me. Change had been stripped like a white rabbit. But when the last obstacle was about to be removed, she finally sobered up a little, pushing his chest with half-closed eyes. Your Majesty, Xia Guixuan stopped. Are you still nervous? Well, Change felt a little apologetic. Subconsciously. She wanted to say give me some more time, but swallowed it back. I don't know if he was unhappy when I said that last night, but, subconsciously I still felt that it was too fast, just like a pure gift, and the rabbit was still watching. Change then remembered that she covered her face and dared not look at the rabbit she raised at home, feeling that she had lost face. If he insisted, her weak refusal would definitely be useless. Woo-woo rabbit, don't look. Just thinking about this, she heard Xia Guixuan whispered in her ear, I said, I am here to accompany you to get to know each other, not just for that little thing. Come, hold me and sleep, okay? Change was stunned, and there was a bit of gratitude and love in her eyes. He is so considerate now. Change leaned on his shoulder with a gentle smile on her lips. If she felt that she belonged to him mentally before, now she feels more and more that it is also emotionally. Getting married first and then getting to know each other is the ancient Chinese custom, which often leads to tragedy. Fortunately, this is, first sad and then happy. I will never quarrel with the two sisters again in the future and will not embarrass him. Gundam crossed his arms in the distance, and wanted to pull Athena and say, see if my guess is right. Turning around, Athena had already run away. Chapter 521 Athena's Real Fear. It seemed that all kinds of emotional entanglements had lasted for a long time, but according to the customary conversion, the actual time had not even passed for a day and a night. The Moon Palace has returned to peace and tranquility. The biggest difference from the past is that there is a male owner. The male owner is not here to enjoy the mistress. In essence, he is here to defend against the enemy, so the woman has a backbone. After sleeping with Change in his arms, Xia Guixuan began to arrange a plan to defend against the enemy. He knew that the enemy would be here soon. This was the first formal confrontation with this mysterious force, and he took it very seriously. The biggest advantage of dealing with Change is that she started to be obedient enough and answered whatever was asked. Some questions that were inconvenient to ask before, and might not be answered even if asked, were answered completely at this moment. She also thought that this was a sign that you already regarded her as your own wife. Did your sister ask you to come here? Sister Xiao Simon didn't arrange a specific place. She asked me if it was uncomfortable to stay there for a long time. I said that I really couldn't stand it, so she suggested that I go out to visit and live in another place. Xia Guixuan, as he said that, it became his own fault again. Henge glanced at him cautiously. The past? Let's not talk about the past. Your Majesty treats me very well now, Xia Guixuan said. I mainly want to know the current situation, the situation of you and your sister, and the background of this battle. Henge said, there is no situation. My sister persuaded me to come out. My sister thought that I had too little communication with the outside world, so I might be deceived if I came out with a rabbit. She was worried, so she arranged for Athena to follow. So the three of us came out. Xia Guixuan nodded. So you found this place by accident? It's not an accident. This Taiyan breath resonates with me. I sense the existence of this plane from a long distance away. When I came in and took a look, I liked it so much. Well, so my sister's original intention was just to let you leave the dangerous place. There is no mission to speak of. There is really no mission to speak of. If there is, she said that if you encounter strange phenomena that are unreasonable in the plane, you should collect more information and pay attention to it, and don't force yourself to do anything. Henge said a little embarrassedly. As a result, I saw that this plane is really different from what I thought it should be, and I couldn't help it. I plan to live here permanently. I can see that you intend to live here permanently. It suits you very well. Xia Guixuan secretly thought that this logic made sense. Otherwise, letting Henge go on a mission to face those people would always feel more miserable than Liao Huel being the vanguard. There was no need to force it so much. Moreover, Henge didn't seem to think whether this conflict would cause Xiao Siming, who was still in the old place, to be suspected by others, because Xiao Siming didn't ask her to do anything, so of course she didn't consider these. In fact, Xiao Siming should have just felt a breath of the coming storm, or simply said that it was after seeing him, Xia Guixuan, that she had a premonition that Taikang would come back sooner or later, so she arranged in advance for those who might cause Xia Guixuan to be tied up to leave first, which was also a kind of protection. That's all. It was just a little joke of fate that Xia Guixuan happened to find this place. And the enemies gathered in advance. Because of this battle should not have any impact on Xiao Siming. It had nothing to do with her. Even if the other party investigated, it was just an accident. Even Change's finding this plane was an accident, not to mention other things. Xia Guixuan's worries were completely put down. As long as he didn't pit his sister far away, what was there to fear about how he fought? Your previous formation needs to be adjusted. Its power and sustained attack capability can be improved again. Xia Guixuan pondered for a moment. There are still people. Wait for Long Yao and Haoi to come out of retreat, add the three of you, and form a formation. Ahu and I can support and hide in the form of the 7 stars. I am not very confident about your individual combat power, but if you can join hands to form a formation, it will be different. I dare not say about the Supreme, and no matter who comes to taking, it will be useless. Change said, I will cooperate well with the two sisters. Well, Xia Guixuan shouted, Ahu, Ahu. Gundam appeared beside him with an expressionless face. I am not your summon beast. Can you reshape the previous defective formation of heaven and earth? Of course, this place is a part of me, but I am not your summoned beast. What's going on with Athena? I need a human formation. Talk. She ran away and I don't know where she went. Is this your solution? Gundam sat down on the ground. This is my level. If you have the ability, don't ask me to set up a formation. This is your fucking plane. Xia Guixuan grabbed it and said, why do you treat it like my business? Because you want to curry favor with your own woman now? You will work harder than me. Are you a human? I'm Gundam. Xia Guixuan was so angry that his teeth itched, and Change Rabbit was stunned. Before this, everyone also had a great understanding of the heavenly way that evolved from this arm. If they had known that the original owner of the arm was of this character, then what on earth did they understand? At this moment, Long Gao Shangxiaoi was in seclusion, otherwise he would probably tell them both very sadly that the descendants of the Kanglong Star God have a lot in common with you, and they have been deceiving themselves. It is the Father God who is approachable, and it is their own realm that is low, and they do not understand the thoughts of God. I don't care if you are a human, a Gundam, or a pig. Xia Guixuan pinched its neck and shook it. Go and set up the heaven and earth array, now, immediately. Change, take my tripod and go collect the wishes of the living beings. This collective wish will bring them some surprises. What about you? I'm going to find Athena. No need to look for her. Athena's voice came from outside the door. Just tell me if you have anything. Xia Guixuan glanced at her, left the Gundam behind. Go to work. He waved at Athena again. Follow me. As he said that, he walked to the back of the hall. Athena pursed her lips and followed him. When passing by the Gundam, her face involuntarily became ruddy. In the past, Xia Guixuan was mostly trembling with fear when talking to her. But today, he didn't feel much trembling, but his face was almost burning. So is this person's advice actually meaningful? Change held a shrunken square tripod and looked at Athena's back with a strange look. She didn't say anything and took the rabbit to the lower world. The former association to denounce Xia Guixuan has become like this, like a hunter going into the mountains to hunt bears. Behind the temple is still the lake, which is part of the moon spring. Xia Guixuan stood by the lake and looked at the quiet lake water, whispering, I don't know what you think, although this place is beautiful, I have only stayed for a day or two, and I already want to leave. Athena whispered, yes, the eternal night makes life uncomfortable. You have been with Change for so long, why haven't you thought about leaving? I promised His Highness Shao Siming. I have surrendered. I am her subject, and also yours. Since I have made up my mind, I will not have second thoughts, Athena said a little nervously. She felt that Xia Guixuan was doubting her. Was she a ghost who was monitoring Change? In fact, if he really doubted this, it was not Xia Guixuan's fault. Everyone would doubt this. But Xia Guixuan said, I believe it. Athena was stunned. Xia Guixuan continued, first, I believe in your character. Second, I believe in my sister's vision. And third, I believe that you are afraid of me, so you dare not. Athena lowered her head and did not answer. I heard what Ahua said to you. Don't pay attention to it. Xia Guixuan suddenly laughed at himself. I may be quite lustful now, and I don't flatter myself. But I have a limit. The way I am walking now is the way of man. We are together because of feelings, not because we have to get whoever is beautiful. You should believe this. Athena sighed slightly, not knowing what she was feeling, but whispered, yes, I did this to Change because she was intentional. If you are not intentional, I will not be intentional. There is no need to force this thing, Xia Guixuan said, so you and I should talk about some serious topics. Athena still said, yes, but I dare not trust you completely. Do you know why? Athena's heart moved slightly this time, and she looked up at him in surprise. After saying so much, he finally said that he didn't trust her. Because you are Athena, Xia Guixuan said calmly, I no longer believe in any gods with names and surnames, as if they have existed since birth. I watched Change become a god. It doesn't matter. She may not know what I mean. You should know, so you asked it to enlighten me, not to enlighten, but to test. Yes, Xia Guixuan turned to her and laughed. Looking at you now, you have a bit of wisdom. What was that before? Playing house? Athena was indignant and said angrily, you were the one playing house first. After she finished speaking, she realized that her tone was wrong and lowered her head in panic. Xia Guixuan didn't care, but smiled and said, this attitude is very good. If you have any questions, just say it. If you don't say it, how can we know what you are thinking? Athena, Xia Guixuan's smile faded, and he said lightly, if I am not mistaken, my sister was able to successfully subdue you with this reason. Athena, Do you want to know who you are? Athena was silent for a moment, and whispered, your wisdom is the light of the rising sun, then it is not me that you should hate and fear. The fear of me is just the embodiment of your broken inherent cognition, as if I caused all this. Xia Guixuan pointed to the distant sky, your spear should be pointing there. Athena's body trembled slightly, holding the spear for a long time without saying a word. Xia Guixuan suddenly reached out and changed the direction of her spear to point at herself. Then he stretched out his palm and scratched the tip of the spear. The tip of the spear brought up a burst of blood. Athena's eyes widened, at a loss. You think the invincible Xia Guixuan can also be injured by your spear? It's nothing great, why be afraid? Xia Guixuan let go of her spear and smiled slightly. So those people are nothing great either. P.S. 512-517 is out. Chapter 522. Facing the enemy, Athena stared blankly at the tip of her spear. The supreme blood flowed and covered, and in the blink of an eye, his spear was coated with a layer of divine glory again. The quality was visibly improved, becoming the top-level peak artifact. This is not about the artifact. It is about using his blood to give her confidence. Athena's heart was extremely complicated, and she had no idea what she was feeling at the moment. But she saw Xia Guixuan touching his chin. Why do I feel that this scene is a little familiar? Oh, by the way, I heard that your blood can be used to make divine clothes. Athena, Xia Guixuan said. No? Did I mess with the show? Athena was simply at a loss for words. Although you did mess with the show. But aren't you making divine clothes? Divine blood can certainly improve the attributes of equipment, especially your blood, which is almost a world of its own. Then, when your period comes, Athena was like in a dream. Is this what you should say? Oh, I was infected by a hui. It's nothing. Xia Guixuan waved his hand. I forgot that you shouldn't have periods. Athena was at a loss for words. Xia Guixuan blinked. Are you still afraid? Are you talking nonsense to make me get rid of my fear? Athena frowned, but still said, afraid. Xia Guixuan said curiously, this shouldn't be the case. Afraid that you will continue to talk nonsense. Athena turned around and left unhappily. She had never thought about it before. After giving that great being a cold shoulder and leaving, she would give Xia Guixuan a cold shoulder and leave. She dared to do it, and they were not angry. It was a magical experience. According to her own cognition back then, let alone the Father God and others, even if it was herself, she would not tolerate others' disrespect. Now thinking about it, was I too pretentious back then? Hey, don't go, Xia Guixuan shouted behind him. I'll give you a set of formations, and you will be the host when the time comes. Athena paused. Host? I'm not an expert at your Eastern formations, and Long Iao and Shang's Haoi. It's for you to change the formation. You host the Western version, and Long Iao and Haoi can't do it, Xia Guixuan said, but there is a prerequisite. Athena finally turned around and said solemnly, please give me your orders, just don't be afraid. Xia Guixuan put away his smile and said lightly, the divine weapon that has drunk my blood, Xia Guixuan, will not match a cowardly master. That is an insult to me. Athena subconsciously saluted with her spear horizontally. I won't let you down. Xia Guixuan sighed and laughed again. I thought you would say that revenge is to insult. Athena couldn't help it, and asked with some seriousness, you know I hate you. If I stab you with a spear bathed in your blood, will you regret it? Xia Guixuan wanted to say something, but held it back, smiling gracefully. I'm at your service anytime. Athena asked curiously, You were hesitating to say that I'm overestimating my own abilities. You'd better not listen to it. It's not good to be too curious. I can handle it. I've never heard of such a request. Naoho's voice came from the distance. He must have wanted to say that he could also pierce you with a spear with your blood. But he felt that it had nothing to do with you, so he held it back with great difficulty. Xia Guixuan was stunned. Fuck, you already know me to this extent. Naoho was complacent. We have been traveling together for more than a year, and I'm in vain if I can't even see your little thoughts. Athena really didn't know what was so proud of this thing. She blushed and rubbed her toes on the ground, almost digging out a stream of moon fountain. Xia Guixuan hurriedly handed her a jade slip. That's it, go back and study it. That's it, I'm leaving first. Athena took the jade slip, and the two ran in opposite directions almost at the same time. Xia Guixuan found Naoho and grabbed it. Athena is a very serious and noble goddess, and she has been a goddess for a long, long time. So what? Who is not a god? What's your mentality? Isn't she your? Naoho interrupted leisurely, based on the nature of your team. If you really want her to restore the old Athena, Then she will pretend to be so unbearable that all of you can't stand it. The best is a combination of the past and the present, just like Si Taikang and Xia Guixuan. Xia Guixuan was stunned, but had nothing to say. Naohu's view is quite thorough. Maybe it's because it knows the old Athena very well? Swoosh, behind the osmanthus tree, two graceful figures flew out from the depths of the lake. Long Gao Shangzhao came out of retreat. Xia Guixuan sensed it and breathed a sigh of relief. The second level of Long Gao taking was basically within expectations and was a natural process. Shangzhao's breakthrough to taking was a relatively radical upgrade. When I first met her more than 3 years ago, she was only in the initial stage of Wuxiang. Although she ranked first among the 4 great priests of the godly race, she might not be able to beat Hunun in a real fight. It was better to say that the so-called high priest was a confidant of the Fox King, which caused Hunun to be dissatisfied. The two sides fought quite badly at that time. In just 3 years, she achieved a rocket upgrade from the initial stage of Wuxiang to taking. This would be normal for others in 30,000 years, but Shangzhao could easily lead to a weak foundation and even a demonic possession in 3 years. But now it seems that there is no problem. This breakthrough is quite solid. It is mainly because of the outrageous luck. Xia Guixuan plus Brain Flower, the improvement assisted by the 2 supreme forces, can directly make a mortal become an immortal, let alone Shangzhao, a cultivator who has been through many battles and has a firm will. The infusion of Taiyin's breath and the dual cultivation of yin and yang completely blasted open the most difficult threshold of taking for people, and it was achieved in 1 step. What's more, she had just gotten married with her lover and was in a particularly relaxed and open-minded mood. The great barrier of taking that countless people dreamed of was broken silently, so that Long Gao, who came out of retreat with her, felt sad. She thought about how difficult it was for her to achieve taking in the past. Her 3 corpses were blown up. Her body was gone, and she lived again, pursued herself, experienced hardships, and was teased by men. It was not easy to achieve taking. Zhao got ahead of him in that matter, and now he has even caught up with him in cultivation. He no longer has any advantage over Zhao. Oh. She used to be my horse. Long Gao was full of jealousy. Shangzhao had already seen Xia Guixuan by the lake. A happy smile soon appeared on his face. He threw himself into Xia Guixuan's arms like a meteor. Zhao didn't disappoint you, I knew my horse was the best. Xia Guixuan lowered his head and kissed him. Shangzhao responded enthusiastically. Well, now we can show our affection openly like this. Where did the stinky look of the abstinence-oriented stereotype priest go? It's different after doing it. Long Gao bit a small handkerchief and squatted under the tree pitifully. A tall man sat beside her with his hands clasped, accompanying her to look into the distance. Long Gao turned around and looked at it curiously. What are you doing? Nothing, I just think you are too miserable. You are responsible for the quarrel, and Ma is responsible for the love. Don't add fuel to the fire. As a fox, it is not so easy to instigate. Long Gao knew at a glance that this guy had bad intentions. She thought to herself that you haven't settled a grudge for throwing me in yet, and you still want to continue to have fun. No way. She rolled her eyes and suddenly smiled. I have been thinking about a problem while I was in seclusion. Brain Flower asked curiously. What? The Taiyin breath we absorbed essentially came from you, right? So it was like taking aphrodisiacs at that time, and it was also you who aroused us, right? Yes, in a sense. Zhao got his yang energy to combine with Lao Xia. In fact, it is the yin and yang combination of you and Lao Xia through Zhao. The transit station. Brain Flower was dumbfounded. Can it be counted like this? Gundam's electronic eyes were spinning in circles, and he was about to find a reason to retort, but his expression suddenly changed. They are coming, faster than expected. P.S. My health has been getting weirder this year. I feel like I need to recuperate for a long time after finishing this book. If I continue like that, I will collapse. Chapter 523, Supreme Xia Guixuan also discovered the approaching terrifying aura in the distance. It was indeed much faster than expected. I thought it would take at least several days, but it was less than 2 days. Fortunately, I was able to settle things quickly. It only took 1 day from being kicked out of the plane by the hostess to the hostess waiting for me to be kicked in. Now they are working together sincerely and don't even quarrel. No worries, then it depends on strength. If the other party came from the Milky Way, the journey alone would have taken years and months. If they were so fast, They either came from a different place than the Milky Way, or they had some special positioning method, similar to a pre-buried wormhole, bypassing space. Or, the real supreme, in the use of space, far surpassed him, Xia Guixuan, and the brain flower of the broken limbs. Which one could it be? Xia Guixuan quickly transmitted the formation diagram into the sea of consciousness of Long Yao Shang's Xiaoi. Just after he finished the arrangement, the earth suddenly changed. The land of the lower world, Jiazhao, which was so solid that taking could fight, suddenly became like a swamp, swallowing all living things, and they couldn't even fly out. This is not a piece of land. Can you imagine the whole earth turning into a swamp? This plain is even bigger than the earth. In just a moment, the livable Jiazhao turned into a barren land where it was impossible to survive. The land turned into a swamp, the seawater instantly flooded, and all the creatures were devoured. Even the screams were so short. You should know that there are still many creatures in Jiazhao without form. There is not even room for struggle. This is not an ordinary swamp. This is the law. Playing with the law of the earth. Brainflower didn't even dare to use the heaven and earth formation that he had just modified. Once used, all the creatures would die. Then why are you waiting here? Xia Guixuan didn't mock. Your plane can be easily invaded by other people's laws, and said in a deep voice, change, change. Press the tripod to the ground. The vast and majestic power of creatures flooded the world. Before this, Emperor descended to the world, and his mind spread to everyone. Did he still want to live the twisted days like before, or enjoy this hard-earned quiet night? Of course, no one hesitated. Even the humans and carnivorous beasts who originally had vested interests were born in the world of night. What they longed for in their hearts was the night. This was their own world, with their own characteristics and environment. They did not need others to interfere, nor did they need others to stop and trigger their darkness. They did not want to become chess pieces in a fight, and drown the world when they did not need it. So the wishes of all living beings gathered in the kingdom. The mouth of the ding emitted a soft light, which spread all over the world and covered the 9 continents. All the swallowed creatures felt that they were wrapped and protected by a magical power. No matter how the sky fell and the earth collapsed, they were as safe as Mount I. On the flooded land, the flood seemed to have seen its biggest nemesis, and it rolled back in a hurry and returned to the sea. The swamp began to turn into fertile fields, and the fertile land of the 9 continents reappeared in the world. Don't play the trick of drowning the world in front of my ding. My ding is professional in this kind of thing, Xia Guixuan said lightly. Ahoo! Congratulations on seeing the ancestral water control. Brainflower was complaining in his heart when he heard Xia Guixuan's instructions. It was a little unhappy for a moment. Why is it treating me the same as you calling me change? Am I your subordinate? Forget it. Xia Guixuan's aura was really strong at this time, as if he would subconsciously listen to him. Brainflower had no intention of resisting him and flicked his finger. The heaven and the human world suddenly became one. It was as if an extra grain of dust would be repelled and squeezed out. The powerful blending and repulsion finally made it impossible for the other party to hide. At the junction of heaven and man, a shadow gradually emerged. Mountains, rivers and roads also appeared on the shadow, the mountains and rivers of Jiazhao. It was a bit like, the mountains and rivers gathered into human shape, just like the world map was slightly outlined and photoshopped into the shape of a woman. The lake is the eyes, the mountains and rivers are the chest, the river is the waist, and the road is the texture. If there is a god that combines the imagination of humans and the world, this is it. Xia Guixuan narrowed his eyes slightly. If it were in China, this kind of god is called Pangu. Fortunately, this is not it, this is a woman. He used to think that this was the real body of Brainflower, but now it seems that it is not. But there should be a strong connection, and they are of the same level, supreme. That kind of terrifying will can make him feel frightened now. He felt the hatred of Brainflower beside him, and a little strange nostalgia. He didn't know what kind of emotion it was, floating through the brain waves. It was a loss of control that had never been captured in Brainflower, to the extent that the will was floating and the band was sensed. Suddenly, the sea level was full of rays of light. There was a moon in the west, and the sun that had never been seen in this world appeared in the east. The sun and the moon shone together on the sea, and the hatred penetrated the sky. The yin and yang energies merged into one, and hit the female spirit phantom formed by the earth. The power of this attack was more than 100 times stronger than when Change activated the formation to fight Nimu before. This is an attack that cannot be avoided as long as you are in this plane. The lake-like eyes of the Earth Spirit flashed slightly, and the vast power of the universe gathered at the intersection of the sun and the moon. Boom! The whole world lost its color. Change used the Yuwanding to protect the creatures below, and looked up at the collision in horror. Without the Yuwanding, even she herself might not be able to withstand the energy waves of the collision. She was in the middle stage of taking. What a terrifying power this was! She even used only her eyes to offset the brain flower with the power of the whole plane. Who is this god? You, the god spread out a plain thought, broken limbs, withered plains. Relying only on the energy of this world, how can you be my enemy? Give up, give up, give up, give up. The echo was lingering and seeped into the depths of everyone's soul. Brain flower groaned slightly. Change was a little confused. Not only her, but also Long Gao Shang's Yu and others were all moved and shaken, just like the ancient earth evening drums pounding into their hearts, shucking and losing their minds. And unable to raise any will. That was the suppression of the creation god. The one who was most affected was Athena. She almost couldn't hold the spear and wanted to kneel down. Great, ding, the sound of a bell came from nowhere and broke the evening drum. Dong Huang bell. Everyone woke up and quickly formed a battle array. Xia Guixuan's figure had entered the depths of the battle circle without knowing when. The icy sword reflected his cold eyes. Even if you are Pangu, you can't bully my woman, not to mention you are not. The tip of the sword glowed slowly, not the brilliance of the Tai sword that cleansed the evil spirits in the past. On the contrary, it was a little dark, a little empty, as if it existed but not, as if it was not there but not there. The sword broke into the brilliance of the battle between the brain flower and the gods, like a black spot appearing in the sun, spreading, swallowing, and gradually dying. Xia Guixuan's ultimate skill, the annihilation of all immortals, the sword of nothingness. The calm eyes of the earth spirit finally showed some fluctuations and surprise. Sword of Guixu, the sun, moon, and universe returned to nothingness, and all the fighting auras rolled back and collapsed. For the first time, the spirit stretched out its giant hand of mountains and rivers and pressed against the tip of Xia Guixuan's sword. Both sides retreated at the same time. Xia Guixuan looked serious, but there was excitement and a slightly ferocious light in his eyes. I couldn't find you before, and I thought you were just a legend. It turns out you really exist. It turns out that you are the ones who entered Guixu. He laughed softly. It's good to come out. Let me see how much stronger legends of your level are than Zeus and Odin. Gaia. Chapter 524, Holy Spear. Gaia, the goddess of the earth and the mother of gods in the Greek pantheon, is the first creator god in the true sense. All gods are conceived and evolved by her, and the king of gods Zeus can only be regarded as her grandson. The world changed from chaos to order, starting with her, from nothing to something, the embodiment of the origin of creation. There are few legends about her fighting power, and it is said that Zeus is the strongest god. Xia Guixuan also believed it at that time, thinking that if it was better than Zeus, this pantheon would be just like that, and it didn't matter whether chaos, Gaia, etc. could be found. Those may be just legends, not real existences. The pantheon was destroyed, and those people didn't come out to save the world. Just like Xia Guixuan had never seen Pangu Huang in China, and couldn't manifest Huangshan and how to. Everything was still based on taking as the apex of all living beings, leading all battles and rule. When we met today, I realized that Yuanshu was Yuanshu after all, the ancestor of creation and the mother of gods. After all, the realm was ahead, and Zeus could never be her opponent. That is supreme, which literally means there is no higher, the highest point above all immortals and gods. The ultimate pursuit of not being inferior to others is what Xia Guixuan has been obsessed with for millions of years. He has abandoned his love, hesitated to pursue, killed his relatives, secluded himself for thousands of years, and reopened the world. Everything is for this obsession, and now he finally appears alive in front of him, within reach. No longer a broken limb or a pig's brain, he is a complete and supreme one. How can I not be excited? Even if I lose the battle, I have to know how big the gap is. Judging from the attack just now, the gap is not big. Although I used a big move and the opponent just blocked it casually, the result was indeed evenly matched, and it did force her to parry. In other words, the gap is not to the extent of dimensionality reduction and crushing. I have indeed stepped through that door, at least standing on the threshold. The so-called big move does not mean that there are no other means, not to mention that I still have a team. The road I have walked again since I came out of seclusion is not a burden, but an arm. Isn't it time to verify it? Just as Xia Guixuan called out the word Gaia, Henge returned to the outside of the Moon Palace and formed a 5-star array with Yutu, Athena, Long Gaiao, and Shang Xiaoi. The array lights circulated, echoing and circulating with Xia Guixuan and Gundam, forming the meaning of the 7 stars. Xia Guixuan was the sun, and Naohu was the moon. The metal, wood, water, fire, and earth circulated in turn, reflecting on the sky, forming a scene like stargazing on Earth in this distant plane. The brilliance illuminated the dark plane, the 7 stars were infused, and the Milky Way appeared. The will of the common people circulated in the tripod and linked to Xia Guixuan's body. The upper part responded to the galaxy, and the lower part felt the common people, the intention of the Emperor of Man, and the name of the Emperor of Heaven. Xia Guixuan's fundamental practice, the strongest form, was shown to people without reservation for the first time, even when he was against the enemy Naohu. That was the power of the East Emperor, who could break through the Milky Way with only the middle stage of taking, and it made Athena still fearful and difficult to get rid of the psychological shadow. Gaia found that the pressure had increased. The power of nothingness that could have been easily offset was now getting heavier and heavier. So heavy that her own power began to vanish, and the battle line with Xia Guixuan was quickly pulled closer. The light of nothingness had broken through her power of the earth and began to spread to her hands. She finally stretched out her other hand and punched Xia Guixuan in the chest. It was the hand of a giant, and Xia Guixuan was like an ant under the punch. As long as there is earth, Gaia is the master, even if this earth comes from brain flower. This punch is the power of the destruction of heaven and earth. This world can be directly destroyed and no longer needs to exist. Gundam snorted and was about to compete with her for who is the master of the world, but saw Xia Guixuan move his left hand. The Yuanding floating in the sky suddenly dispersed, 1 turned into 9, and flew to Jiaxiao. Then the scene changed. Starlight seemed to emerge from the ding, and soon covered the sky. Jiaxiao disappeared and turned into a vast void, a universe. Gaia's power to coexist with the earth was suddenly isolated. This is no longer the plane of Brainflower's arm, but Xia Guixuan's own plane, the Kanglong star domain, the solid of the 3 realms. In this world, the greatest creator god is not Brainflower, nor Gaia, but Xia Guixuan. Replace the universe, and the stars shift. Gaia punched the void, stirring up a space turbulence. I don't know how many secondary planes were destroyed by this punch, but the 3 realms were worry-free, and Xia Guixuan was safe, like the wind blowing on his face. Gaia was more and more shocked. You have actually reached such a realm? She was shocked, but Brainflower was not shocked with her. When Xia Guixuan replaced the origin of the world, it put away its original idea of competing with Gaia for the control of the plane, and changed its routine at the first time. It is very limited. After all, it only has 1 brain and 1 arm, and it can't play too much. The most direct offensive is the art of the soul. Gaia's sea of consciousness exploded, as if there were billions of fine needles piercing and stirring in the depths of the soul, stirring up the mountains and rivers into chaos, and turning time and space into turbulence. That was not a soul shock. It was the return of all things to chaos, the return of the universe. A mere brain, can you do this? Gaia was more and more frightened. The return of chaos of the brain was not easy to deal with. Even if it seemed that nothing happened on the surface, it was far less than the movement caused by Xia Guixuan, but the restraint on Gaia was definitely not inferior to Xia Guixuan. So much so that the second attack she launched against Xia Guixuan lost the power she had predicted. Xia Guixuan disappeared in front of her. Compared with his speed, any movement seemed to disappear. A nebula summoned from nowhere was stuffed between Gaia's peaks. Boom! Athena in the distance subconsciously raised her hand to block the terrifying impact force, and an inexplicable thought came to her mind. With his ability to cross-act, I wonder if he thought of the galaxy starburst when launching this attack? Yes, this is the real galaxy starburst. Countless stars gathered at one point and exploded. That kind of terrifying energy reaction is enough to make countless worlds disappear. Assuming that Gaia's body is a manifestation of a plane, it will definitely be blown up completely and there is no way it can remain. However, Gaia's body is not a manifestation of a plane. She is actually just an image, not in the present, not in the past, and not on the future. As long as it is a world, it is Gaia. The mountains and rivers were scattered in Xia Guixuan's palm, but Gaia had already appeared in front of the Moon Palace formation. The double restrictions of Xia Guixuan and Brain Flower could not restrain her at all. You have become so powerful, It is the credit of this formation, Gaia said leisurely. You are smart, knowing that they can't cause any harm to me, so you changed to blessing and weakening. This Eastern 5 elements and 7 stars formation still has some tricks. As the voice sounded, the foot of the mountain giant had stepped on the center of the formation. Crack, this foot failed to step down. Xia Guixuan held the Yuanding and suppressed it below her, and resisted the kick. They are not strong enough. They can assist you, but they can also hinder you. Gaia smiled slightly. I wonder if you will regret it. Huh? Before she finished speaking, her expression turned to surprise again. The formation below changed. From the most typical blessing of the 5 elements and 7 stars, it became a dark pentagram. Together with Xia Guixuan above, it formed a typical 6-pointed star formation, a Western formation. A golden spear, with the tip of the spear carrying the color of blood, like a piercing through the sky. The spear stained with the blood of Jesus can become the supreme holy spear for killing gods and demons, so what about the spear stained with the blood of Xia Guixuan? At least it is no different from Xia Guixuan's own attack. The formation has become a reverse blessing, inviting the gods to descend and infuse Xia Guixuan's power into this formation attack. The attacking end is Athena. Gaia's surprise was not the power of this attack, but Athena's sharp eyes. The ancient god of war has returned and returned to the world. Athena, how dare you? How dare you stab me with a spear? Athena's eyes were firm, and she did not answer. The greatest existence in my heart, and the devil I fear the most, are actually all fools, so aren't you the same? What's so scary? Chapter 525, I am the only one. Xia Guixuan has seen many invincible masters, but they were defeated because of their underestimation of the enemy. In fact, it is not a psychological defect, but a common practice, just like humans often look down on a goose, but when it comes to a real fight, most people can't beat a goose. So Xia Guixuan has always developed a very cautious virtue, hiding and doing all kinds of preliminary investigation step by step, which sometimes makes people feel that it does not match his reputation. Just like coming to this world and going to see Jia Zhao first, playing with small characters like Ma Fei, should it be overwhelmed and be done with it? But he is still alive, and some strong people who were once stronger than him have 3 feet of grass on their graves. Now Gaia is about the same. She will never be wary of a few assistants. What kind of people are here? Henge, who seems to be the highest in the middle stage of taking, has never fought in her life. She and Athena Rabbit rushed forward to drive away Nimu. The most glorious time is probably the battle a few days ago, when Xia Guixuan was driven out of the plane. Athena is a veteran taking, but her heart is damaged and she is still depressed. In actual combat, she can't beat Henge. A fox who just reached the 2nd level of taking. A horse that had just broken through taking and hadn't even sat still. A pure rabbit with no form, whose form was made up of natural materials and treasures. Just this zoo, this bunch of misfits, what can they use to challenge the Supreme? Not to mention Athena as the main attacker. How could Athena have the confidence to attack Gaia? Gaia really didn't take this bunch of stuff seriously. In the end, it was Athena who really took action, and the whistling golden light penetrated her feet heavily. Even Xia Guixuan's nebula explosion failed to cause damage, but this spear really broke into it firmly. There was no blood. Gaia had no blood, only Xia Guixuan's blood was surging and tearing in Gaia's body unscrupulously, like a pollution source invading the world. Gaia made the first slightly painful hum, and anger finally appeared in her calm eyes. She clamped the tip of the spear with her feet and twisted it heavily. With a click, the spear handle broke, and Athena spit out a mouthful of blood and fell back to the ground. A broken arm like white jade suddenly appeared in front of her, and it cut into the wound on Gaia's foot, blocking Gaia's pursuit of Athena. Gaia finally felt what it meant to be ganged up on. With a level of Naoho and Xia Guixuan, it was already outrageous to cooperate with each other to gang up on someone. They didn't even blush, and they cooperated more and more tacitly. Gaia kicked a broken arm away angrily, and the broken arm went back into Gundam in the distance in a wretched manner. That's all you have? Gaia was incredulous, and even wanted to laugh a little. Where's your dignity? Naoho said in a muffled voice. If you have the guts, cut it into hundreds of millions of pieces and then talk to me about dignity. What about Xia Guixuan? Is this your invincibility? Join hands and be invincible. Xia Guixuan's voice came from not far away, just like now. Do you think my attack is 1 person or 2? Gaia turned her head and saw Xia Guixuan riding a heroic centaur, charging with a spear. The spear was in the centaur's hand, and the centaur's hand was in his hand. It was unknown whether he was riding a horse and holding a spear, or whether the horse and the man were charging. The horse and the man were like one, charging at lightning speed. Athena retreated back into the formation, and the formation below changed again, from the hexagram formation to the 5 elements and 7 stars again. The formation was strengthened, and then the horse was amplified. Gaia could only see a terrifying white light, which occupied all her sight. The light was like a sword, breaking through the void. It was the original first light, Teai, chaos, and the singularity of the universe. All things began from then on. It was nothing, and it was also something, the beginning between nothing and nothing. The convergence of Teai and Giwu, the intersection of time and space, the intersection of creation and destruction, the sword of the beginning. Xia Guixuan had been pursuing the magical power for thousands of years, which he had never used and never had the strength to use. At this moment, it finally took shape. When the world was replaced by his Kanglong 3 realms in the background of this formation, riding on Shang's Heoi who had reached taking, he had the right time, right place, and right people in his hands, and he was supreme. Gaia felt the threat of death. She wanted to dodge, but there was another cramp in her sea of consciousness, and her brain was pulling her back in a mean way. If she didn't dodge in an instant, then don't dodge. The light of the 9 cauldrons of the world was so bright that it covered all the space. Gaia had never thought that these people could actually cause her death. She always thought that the invincible Dong Huang was praised by the lower world, but at this moment she really knew that there was no falsehood. The premise of invincibility is whether you work together, and the victory of the group is also your victory. It doesn't matter whether the other party is a woman. Boom, mountains and rivers collapsed, rivers and seas overflowed, the world fell apart, and the dimension was shattered. Time and space were frozen here and lost their meaning. Gaia knew that she couldn't beat such a favorable time, place and people. She didn't believe it in her heart. Can you really cooperate like this without any selfishness? Just like you, Xia Guixuan, are you willing to give up at this moment of full force attack, and defend again like you did before when you withstood my kick to protect the formation? If you give up, the advantage you created will be gone. Gaia's mind moved, and she took a moment out of her busy schedule. A ray of light exploded in the formation. You, Xia Guixuan, said it nicely. Are you really willing to give up everything for these zoos? I don't need to be tested like this every time. Long Gaia was tired of it. Do you want change and the others to try it too? Xia Guixuan's voice suddenly appeared in the formation, facing the light. The power of the Yuanshu sword that attacked her Gaia did not decrease at all. Gaia suddenly reacted, and transformed into 3 pure ones in one breath, and the clone died in her place? Aren't you afraid of hurting the root? There was no time to think and choose, and there was no room for Gaia to regret. With a bang, Xia Guixuan's clone was torn into pieces and died thoroughly, and blood also overflowed from the corners of Xia Guixuan's mouth. It was obvious that he had suffered a serious injury. But Gaia was even worse. While stalemate with Xia Guixuan's most powerful move, she dared to be distracted to attack the formation. This little deviation in power was enough to change the balance. Zizzy, the mental shock of brain flower came again. This time it really stirred her sea of consciousness, and her divinity was scattered. Bang! The Yuanshu sword finally broke through Gaia's defense and pierced through her heart. The giant turned into ashes, and the nature of the god completely disappeared in this world, because there is only one god in this world. It can only be Xia Guixuan, not anyone from outside. There was an angry voice echoing in the world, as if it came from a different universe. Xia Guixuan, I hope you know clearly what you are doing. She will not die. The Supreme is eternal and indestructible, nothing but expulsion. In this world, there is no real name for you. Don't bother, I know what I am doing better than you guys who don't even know where you came from. Xia Guixuan's body was covered in blood, and his smile looked more and more ferocious. I know the supreme power, the so-called immortality is just like this. I'm afraid you should be careful next time, before and after the war, twice. Because there is nothing above me anymore. I am the supreme. The voice did not argue much and soon disappeared. The starry sky dissipated, the moonlight returned, the land of Xia Guixuan appeared in the world, and hundreds of millions of lives emerged from the protection of Yu Wangding. They knew nothing, but they only knew that the gods saved the world and helped everyone to resist a catastrophe of world destruction. And the gods are not just the moon gods that everyone originally knew. Another dragon-like figure, the light is reflected in the eternal river, the sun and the moon crawl at his feet, and the stars are just his texture. The 9 tripods are around him, as if they are protecting the 3,000 worlds. In heaven and on earth, this is the only one that is respected. They saw their own aloof Emperor Moon God, nestling in his arms like a little bird, unable to hold back and offering a passionate kiss. Your Majesty, Xia Guixuan hugged Change and kissed her wantonly in front of the crowd, his thoughts spreading across the heaven and earth. This Taiyan plane is about to migrate and merge into our Kanglong divine realm. The migration process may take years, and all living beings can practice as usual, and there will be no impact. All living beings bow their heads. I will obey the Father God's oracle. Wait a minute, don't use this word carelessly. It's not that I kissed your Moon God, so I became the Father God. Because your Mother God is not Change. It's the Gundam who crossed his arms and watched coldly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.